Several giant monsters emerge along with a mystical force, and both are beneath the ruined city. There are numerous giant monsters spreading chaos and destruction. In front of a kind of giant centipede, there is a boy. Then he starts to activate some kind of magical ability as his eyes are glowing. In an instant, he launches a powerful blue ray toward the monster. He smiles as it appears he defeated it without any effort. Returning to reality, someone begins to call for Lu Shen. Waking up with a tired face, he asks what happened. Everyone in the classroom starts laughing, and his teacher scolds him, saying that he slept the entire day again. Irritated, the teacher warns that there are only 200 days left until the final exam, and all the student does is sleep endlessly. He warns that if he continues like this, he won't achieve anything in life, not even as a construction worker. He asks what the minimum status of a construction worker is, and the boy responds that it is 0.8. Laughing a lot, one of the students intervenes, saying they can let the kid sleep, and another says his life status is 0.7. Disappointed, the man says that the boy isn't even trying. After that, he dismisses his class, which makes everyone happy. This is Liu Qiming, one of Lu Sheng's friends, who asks if he had a nightmare again. In response, he closes his eyes, remembering what he dreamed. It was a dry and depressing field with only monsters. He comments that his nightmare made his mental state drop and that his life status went to 0.02. So his friend responds that they are regular humans. Standing up, he invites him to go to the internet cafe to play games, and his friend replies that he is not in a good mood and prefers to go home. Surprised, his friend asks why he is going home so early and invites him again to play, but the protagonist refuses once more because he needs to sleep. Then another student calls for Liu Qiming to go play, and he says he is coming. Frustrated, he says goodbye and promises that next time they will play together. Sometime later, the boy is walking on the sidewalk. He says that he never thought that after reincarnating in this new world, he would still have to worry about exams. Tired, he says he stressed too much about math and should at least check the news. It seems this world and his old world are not so different after all. In the middle of the city, he sees several advertisements along with a news screen. Suddenly, a woman carrying several boxes arrives and tells him not to get distracted in the middle of the street. Impressed, he notices how strong this woman is and wonders if one day he will be like her in that regard. It's already late in the afternoon. A woman is applying something on her husband's back and asks him to grit his teeth and hold on because it's almost over. These are the protagonist's parents, who arrive at his house. Putting on his shirt, his father asks if he is hungry, and his mother says she will prepare dinner since they are just waiting for their daughter to return. Concerned, the boy calls for his father. He asks why they don't buy a blood circulation device and comments that he heard that just by holding it, one's vital energy and blood increase. Smiling, the man says that this is not a wound that happens because of age. He also mentions that he is as tough as metal, so these injuries are nothing. Changing the subject, he says he has a present for the boy. Presenting it, he says this is the latest recovery powder from the benevolent clinic. Seeing this, the woman asks if this isn't the recovery powder that costs $20,000 and was advertised on TV. Patting the man on the back, she says he is incredible for getting it. Soon, he endures a few slaps. Happily, she says it's perfect, and that her superiors allowed her to bring the leftover pork from work, so they should celebrate his effort with it. Both are very happy with this achievement and start laughing, while the protagonist holds back from saying something. His mother asks about his life status and if he managed to reach 0.85. She explains that his sister is almost at 0.9 and that she saw on the news that they want to raise the minimum exam level by 0.01. Nervous, the boy says he already knows about this. In his room, he takes off his jacket and realizes that now he needs to hurry and start exercising. Quickly, he closes his eyes and concentrates. These are the 24 body reconstruction techniques. Striking a strange pose, he performs the 14 sets of radio exercises. The martial world recommends these 24 techniques, and they are used to help novices improve their foundations, and what he is doing now is the 13th edition after revision. Since the world changed 300 years ago, several cracks appear in both the sky and the earth. Monsters emerged from these cracks, and humanity's advanced weapons became useless, as humans needed a new power. Soon, a genetic lock emerged. The individual strength of all people increased drastically. Soon, humanity entered the era of martial arts prosperity. However, on a battlefield full of monsters, humanity was still at a disadvantage, and every day, cities were falling as humans reached their limits. A man gives a speech that these people were born into a world without rest, so they must carry this responsibility, and that each one is the future legacy of martial arts. Sometime later, the protagonist is tired after completing 3 sets of the body reconstruction techniques, and his status hasn't changed, so he compares himself to his sister. His parents brought him a lot of medicine to use, and even the heavens gave him a second chance by reincarnating him into this world, so he wonders if this is the result. Sweating heavily, he says it's useless even after doing it 3 times, so he must do it as many times as necessary. His vision starts to blur. Apparently, he faints, but he quickly wakes up startled. As he gets up, he wonders if this is the desolate feel from his nightmares. Pinching his own cheek, he says that it seems he still can't wake up. Behind him, a monster emerges, roaring and attacking. The boy falls to the ground, managing to defend himself just barely. Paying attention, he realizes it is some kind of zombie. He says he has managed to escape from them a few nights, but he can't believe he was caught by this creature. Without wanting to talk, the zombie tries to hit the hero with a headbutt but misses, striking the ground instead. Irritated, the boy tells the monster not to underestimate him. Placing a foot on the enemy's chest, he says that even though he is terrible at combat and even though he's a weakling with a life status of 0.7, kicking, he says that even so, he will become a martial artist. After the kick, the monster is sent flying far away. Grabbing a stone in his hand, he prepares to finish off the creature. He hits the zombie with all of his strength using the stone. After this attack, Lou is covered in stains and exhausted on top of the defeated zombie. He feels relieved for finally defeating it and notes that a zombie's weakness is its head. Suddenly, a black and blue energy starts to consume him, and he questions what this is. It begins to spread all over his body. It starts to show the zombie's memory when it was alive of him at the beach, saying he wants to join the military defense. It also shows the day he became a member of a base. He also learns body reconstruction techniques and that more power means more survival ability. At one point, the base's gates were attacked by evolved creatures. Returning to the present, the boy is shocked to realize these are the zombie's memories when it was alive, and he wonders why he saw this after defeating it. Trembling, he keeps asking himself what just happened. Without giving him time to think, another zombie appears behind him. Turning around, the protagonist prepares to defend himself. He is enveloped by a killing aura, delivering a fatal blow to the enemy without hesitation. His eyes are completely illuminated as if he were possessed. Then he regains his consciousness. Frightened, he questions what just happened and when he became so strong. Surrounded by that energy, he understands that this power is slowly entering his body. He wonders if it is from this armored zombie and if by killing zombies he will not only gain their memories but also their strength. Looking at his hand, he thinks he can't believe it and understands he just gained a lifetime's worth of experience without even trying. He questions if this doesn't defy the laws of nature. Sighing, he comments that if only this weren't a dream. Standing up, he says that it's also strange to call this a dream as it feels too realistic. As he approaches the zombie's body, he notices something. Quickly, its memories start to appear in his mind. Tired, he thinks that the base number is the same as the one that appeared in the previous zombie's memories and that apparently he needs to find this base 3 and 59. He says that absorbing the memories this time wasn't as unpleasant as before and that apparently he will need to find combat-type zombies to drain their combat strength. Suddenly, he sees something strange happening. Looking up, he notices several lightning bolts and that the ground is collapsing in front of him. He runs desperately as his vision blurs again. Then he wakes up and realizes it was all a dream. Dripping with sweat, he notices that he finally woke up from the dream. At that moment, someone starts knocking on his bedroom door. A girl tells Lu Sheng to come out right now, as it's time to eat, calling him for dinner. He opens the door, looking exhausted and tired. She tells him not to even think about saying he was getting excited, because she knows he was sleeping until now. This is Li King, Lu Sheng's only younger sister. The boy starts laughing, and she watches him. With a dead look, the hero comments that he really fell asleep without meaning to. Looking more closely, she notices he had been exercising. Turning away, she says that now that he's awake, he should hurry and go downstairs and not make their parents wait. Embarrassed, she wonders when he got so muscular like that and that apparently he is really putting in the effort. Uncomfortable, the protagonist says that he's on his way. This girl was always close to him when they were young, from starting school together, but after she received the results of her first evaluation, her attitude toward him changed. This is no surprise as her health status is above 1.0 and her combat ability is well over 100. At this rate, she will soon receive a good offer from martial arts universities, and to sum it up, she's a genius. Thinking about himself, he realizes he is just a useless and worthless brother compared to such a genius sister. Looking at himself in the mirror, he wonders when he got this muscular. Besides, he also notices that he doesn't feel lazy at all, despite just waking up, and that he doesn't even feel sleepy, managing to fill himself with energy like never before. But that's not all. He also remembers all the memories he obtained from the zombies and the various combat techniques he inherited. He says that apparently he also got a bit stronger. He wonders if he can bring to this reality the strength he gained in his dreams. After a while, he goes to the table to have lunch with all of them and thinks that these things only happen in fairy tales. While eating a lot, he asks if his mother's cooking has improved and that today's dishes are really tasty. Showing the bowl, he asks for more food and says it's so good he can't stop. By the piled up dishes, it's clear the protagonist has already eaten quite a lot at dinner. Awkwardly, he tells them not to worry because he's already full. Taking the bowl, his father says he won't let him go hungry in his own house. He asks his wife if she can make another pot of rice and cook a few more dishes. Patting his shoulder, he says that all boys are like this during puberty, and that if he never felt full, no matter how much he eats, before you know it, he'll grow taller. He asks how long he can keep growing. His sister responds that he is already 18 years old and that the last time it was checked, it was only 0.8. His father tells the girl not to belittle her brother all the time. Every number counts, and there is a big difference between graduating from a martial arts university. Looking at his hand, he thinks that perhaps his health status really did increase in the dream. He wonders if it's just his imagination and that he should take the dojo test. Sometime later, he is on the street. Staring at the poster, he understands that the master of the Hongshuan dojo is called Nai Hongshuan, being a level 4 martial artist. The martial alliance is global standard. The health status of a level 1 martial artist is 1.5 and their combat power is 150. Meanwhile, the health status of a level 2 martial artist combat power ranges from 1,500 from category 1 to category 2. Then the health status of a level 3 martial artist is 100 and their combat power reaches up to 10,000. One can only become a level 4 martial artist by reaching a peak health status that exceeds 200 and combat power must reach 100,000. He quickly realizes that a health status surpassing 200 is equivalent to 300 of his own, and that a person's position in society is related to their martial artist rank, and that it's enough to look at the tuition fees of the school, which only children from wealthy families can afford. He understands that if his sister wants it, their family will probably pay for it, but not for him. Besides that, he also considers the zombie experience in his dream and that he doesn't really need an early education school. A woman with purple hair welcomes him and asks if he is here to enroll in the martial arts enrichment class. The boy responds that he isn't and that he is only here for an evaluation of his health status and combat power. In her mind, the woman thinks that he doesn't even have a personal instructor with him and that he doesn't seem to be from a wealthy family. Gently, she asks him to walk down the hall to room 8, where there is an evaluation machine. Then she asks if he needs help, and he replies that he doesn't. Inside room 8, he prepares to evaluate his health status first. Determined, he places his hand on the orb. Quickly, a lot of energy flows through his veins. His health status is 0.9, placing him at the martial artist rank of apprentice. Excited, he realizes that he actually increased by 0.2 in just an hour, and that this is how cultivation should be. Thrilled, he understands that he is almost tired of being a novice apprentice, but he is a genius, and at this rate, he will be able to move further along the martial arts path. After checking his health status, now he decides to check his combat power. Preparing to strike the mannequin, he concentrates his energy and says that everything will be fine because the experience and combat techniques from those adapted zombies are all etched in his mind. Then he gets ready to strike with all his might, delivering a strong left punch to the mannequin, which starts to tremble with the force. After the strike, he eagerly awaits the result. His combat power measures 113. In shock, he realizes that it is even higher than the limit for his health status. He questions if this is real and if he can truly become a martial artist. He reflects that he slept for an hour, and that his health status and combat power increased significantly. He wonders what would happen if he slept for 8, 9, or 10 hours in one night. Will he be reborn? Sometime later in bed, his eyes are wide open. Then he says he can't sleep when he wants to and questions if he slept too much in class. Turning on the light, he says it's only 9 p.m., which is a bit too early to sleep, and that at this rate, he'll exercise and naturally fall asleep when he collapses into bed. Inhaling, he says it's great that he can now stabilize his health status because it really increased. He focuses, thinking about the first step. However, he is surprised by something, wondering what he just did and why he would do such a thing. In a combat pose, he says that he has been doing this exercise since primary school and questions how he could make a mistake. Soon he realizes that these are the training techniques from that zombie, which he learned when it was alive. The boy continues training alone in his room, laughing and excited. He says he now knows over 200 attacks. Moreover, the more he practices these attacks, the more he feels the strength within him rising to its peak. And it's not just because of the exercise technique, there's also the breathing technique. He quickly remembers the memory of that zombie in which he learned the breathing exercise techniques. He thinks this is great and that these few movements gave better results than when he practiced for a year. And it immediately gave an insanely better result than all his years of training, affirming that his dream world is like a treasure trove. However, during his training, his stomach starts to growl. Falling to the ground, he says he's hungry and questions why he's been so hungry lately that he can't even bear it. He thinks that his body is unable to produce enough energy after drastically increasing his life status. He understands that regular food cannot provide the necessary nutrients on a large scale and that he needs medicine. However, his family's income isn't enough to cover the costs of such supplements. And if this continues, his living expenses will be affected. Realizing he needs to earn money to buy the medicine, and that the school awards exemplary students with certificates. From what he recalls, students who receive the certificate from BA and Ray Academy earned around 50,000. And if he wants this money, he must show his talent and strength. The next day in the sports arena, the hero is in the locker room, changing. His friend says it's very rare for those teachers not to spend the entire class reviewing the test this time, and that they haven't had a combat class in so long. Looking at the protagonist shirtless, he asks when he got abs. He says they haven't seen each other for just a few days and he almost didn't recognize him. Then the hero responds that he has been practicing a lot lately. He mentions that his hair has grown quite a bit and that he needs to cut it. He asks if he's trying to look handsome for the girls. The boy replies that he's corrupted as the final exam is approaching and he should be preparing more. While getting dressed, he thinks that maybe this is really his chance to become popular. After they finish changing in the martial arts hall, the teacher explains that for today's combat class, they will consolidate what they've learned in the basic martial arts course. This is the combat teacher Zhang Zhengo. Whispering, his friend says that from what he's heard, he is a level 2 martial artist, and that he has already fought monsters before. He asks him to observe the scar on the man's right arm. In his mind, the hero thinks that a level 2 martial artist's attacks seem very simple and superficial, and that what he absorbed from his dreams is far superior to all of this. Meanwhile, the teacher continues demonstrating his techniques. He mentions that he has already covered all the important points. Then he calls out to Yang Weifei, asking him to be his opponent for this demonstration. As the blonde student walks up, the girls comment that he is very handsome and also quite strong. The hero's friend feels annoyed, thinking that he always gets the chance to show off. Moreover, he is handsome and rich, and how could that be fair, since all the medicine he's taken so far has worked well, and his life status is almost at 1.2. He says that the school's teachers are not fair and questions how they mere commoners can survive. Lu thinks that if it were his old self, he would probably think the same way. However, from now on it's different, and he will fight for what he wants. The fight between the student and the teacher seems to be going well. After it ends, the teacher says that his movements are somewhat weak, and that he has only a few small issues like losing his center of gravity, which he needs to correct after class and investigate further. The boy in his mind wonders about helping, and that a low-level martial artist like him is weaker than the fighter from his family, and compared to him, he was just an outsider on the battlefield, with his future being bright. Then the teacher asks who wants to fight against Yang Weifei. Asking if anyone would volunteer, everyone gets nervous. Cyan Kaiming asks who could defeat him and questions if they wouldn't become a public embarrassment if they volunteered. The teacher in his mind understands that every time he mentions combat, the students shy away and that they are too scared, and that even though the school teaches them to cultivate life stages and practice martial arts, those who manage to enter the armies after graduating and continue on the path to becoming the best martial artists are indeed the ones who shine the brightest. In his mind, he understands that the students say he favors them, but they never think about it carefully, and that aside from Yang Weifei, none of them truly want to fight. Suddenly, the teacher notices something among all the students. Staring at the protagonist, he questions the glow that the boy has, and it's as if he has experience in battles. Pointing, he says he will choose this guy here, and in his mind, he wonders if they've always had someone with this potential. His friend asks if it would be better to give up before starting, as the exam is coming soon, and if they get injured, it could affect their scores. Stretching, the hero tells him to relax as he had already mentioned that he has been practicing a lot. The teacher announces that the time limit is 10 minutes and that the rules are the same as a standard fight, reminding them of the important points he had already mentioned. Face to face, both students stare at each other. Teacher Zong comments that they should learn from each other until the time runs out. In his mind, Zong realizes that the student is so calm even though he knows he's going to fight against the strongest in the class, and he wonders how he didn't notice this gem before. He asks what his life status is, and the boy replies that the last time he checked, it was at 0.8. The teacher understands that 0.8 is quite low and wonders if he made a mistake. He asks him not to put too much force into his attacks and that the main goal is to learn. Confident, the blonde student asks if the boy is ready and advises him not to use his hands to cushion his fall as it's too dangerous. Already positioned, the boy thanks him for the warning and says he is ready. Quickly, the blonde's right hand approaches his face. The blonde understands that there are several important factors in combat, but the biggest differences between opponents will be life status, strength, and speed. Ready to attack, he thinks the winner has already decided being stronger and that someone useless like him should kneel and beg for mercy. However, after he finishes the punch, the boy simply vanishes, leaving him confused. Lu managed to dodge the attack and is already preparing to counterattack. The blonde then becomes nervous, unable to understand anything. He takes a strong punch to the cheek, which leaves him completely dazed. The blow is so powerful that it makes the blonde bounce off the ground multiple times like a soccer ball. He crashes to the ground near the other students, completely stunned, and the teacher approaches, picking the boy up in his arms. The entire class is extremely surprised. Quickly, all eyes turn to the protagonist. They begin questioning how Lu Chang did that with just one punch and how he managed to defeat Yang Wufei with a single strike. Even Lu Chang is surprised by what happened. While Yang Wufei remains unconscious in the arms of Professor Zong, the entire class continues to question what just happened, and some can't believe that Lu defeated the strongest student with a single blow. The teacher calls Lu's attention, saying he will call the nurse immediately. Sometime later, the nurse places Yang on a stretcher and takes him away. Lu then approaches Zong, nervous, apologizing, saying it was unintentional and that he couldn't control his strength. Zong just smiles, placing a hand on the boy's shoulder. He says that injuries are inevitable when learning combat and that Lu shouldn't worry. The teacher then asks Lu to come to his office because he wants to talk with him. Lu tells his friend that he needs to go to the teacher's office and that he should inform the next teacher about his absence. Everyone is still in shock about what happened, and some even wonder if Lu Chang's life status is real. As he walks away, all the students continue watching him and murmuring his name. Sometime later, he arrives at Zong's office. Upon entering the room, something catches his attention. Staring at a tree, he comments that the teacher has a bonsai and that he didn't know he had this hobby. Laughing, Zong says that everyone has their hobbies and secrets. He then turns and faces Lu Chang, asking about the boy's statement that his life status was 0.8. Smiling, Lu explains that it was what he measured last time. Zong then asks if Lu isn't taking drugs to increase his life status forcefully, as he knows that this is strictly against the rules. Very surprised, Lu Chang responds that of course not, and that he has never used anything like that in his life. Zong then suggests they do a new life status measurement for the boy. He explains that if Lu really hasn't taken any drugs, the value won't change, and if he is truly strong, the measurement will prove it. Following the request, Lu places his hand on the measurement orb. Suddenly, a large amount of energy begins to flow. Seeing the number, the man is very surprised, understanding that it reads 1.5 life status. He thinks that 1.5 means he is a legitimate martial artist and only 18 years old, and that in his school and even the entire city, he will be considered a genius. Seeing the students strike the mannequin, he notices something very strange. He sees that with just one punch, he destroyed his bonsai. He starts crying a lot while the protagonist, panicked, apologizes. As he cries, the man realizes that even though this machine is designed for rank 1, it should withstand attacks from advanced martial artists. After the test, the boy sits across from his teacher. The man then breaks the silence. He comments that based on what the boy said, the last time he measured his life status was 0.8. So he asks when that was. The protagonist responds that it was 15 days ago, which leaves the man completely surprised. He wonders if, in just 15 days, he managed to increase his life status from 0.8 to a legitimate martial artist number, then questions what kind of wealthy family he comes from. Laughing, the boy says his family is quite normal and that he doesn't have any great master either. He comments that how he managed to increase his strength so quickly is simply a secret. Standing, the man questions how the boy's life status doubled in just a month and how his battle strength is much stronger than that of a legitimate martial artist. He recalls when he was a student, his stats were good, and after cultivating for years, he finally reached the level of a level 2 martial artist and joined the army. Then he remembers that when he was on the battlefield, he noticed something very strange. He realized that humans didn't want to triumph over the monsters, and that when they started gaining absurd amounts of strength, humans seemed small and useless. However, a woman appeared, struggling to save him. The man says that those capable of defeating these monsters are the ones who possess insane amounts of strength, and that ordinary humans can't even keep up with them. These humans, in this case, are monsters. After all this reflection, the man feels a bit nervous and relieved. He says that with these results, Lu could enter the best classes in the school and be taught by the best teachers. Then he says he will speak to the educational administrator right away. Lu thanks him for his generosity but says he doesn't need that because he believes his current class is already very good, and cultivating in his dreams is easier than learning in lessons. Zong says that regardless, the school will provide him with full support as he is very talented, and if he faces any difficulty while cultivating, the school can help. The boy then says he will accept the offer, but he has 2 requests. He says he wants to apply for the martial arts scholarship and also hopes the school will provide him with more free time during class hours. Understanding that he needs money and free time, the teacher says he will assist with the scholarship as well, offering 30,000. As for free time, he will talk to the educational administration office. He mentions that the scholarship application will be approved in 2 days and his training is something immediate. Quickly, he hands over a card saying that for now he will give this and that Lu can pay it back when he has the money. Surprised, the boy realizes it's a black martial arts card that has at least 100,000 and that it's more money than the scholarship. He thanks him and Zong laughs, telling him not to neglect his training and that he's counting on him to restore the school's honor and that now he can go. After the conversation, the boy leaves the room. Zong becomes very excited, saying that the academy will be thrilled with a prodigy like him and that he's not even 18 yet but has the potential of a level 2 martial artist. He thinks he must keep the boy close and use him to intimidate other schools. As he gets up, he considers that his superiors need to know about this and that besides acing the exam, they will finally have someone to send to that place. In another part of the city, the boy examines a vial and the woman comments that he has good taste and that this is the latest benevolent supplement from the hall, the Orchid Heart. The attendant then begins to explain its benefits, stating that it was developed for famous martial artists and that it's on promotion with each bottle costing 30,000. His mother tells her daughter that she needs to practice for a long time after taking this supplement to make full use of it, and the girl assures her not to worry. Seeing this, the boy understands that each bottle costs 30,000, that his parents can only afford supplements costing 3,000 months after working tirelessly, and that rather than only martial artists earning a lot of money, having more money also allows for training stronger martial artists. His sister is a true prodigy, and she has the power to change her own destiny. but her progress has been affected by him, who has low stats and lacks resources. He understands that he isn't willing to accept the fact that he is just a mediocre martial artist and that he isn't doing his best to find ways to change his destiny. In conversation, the bald one says he has mastered a great sword skill. Another says that if he had spent less time gaming, he could have increased his stats faster. In his mind, Lu understands that even though he longed to experience the unimaginable world of martial arts, he was hesitant to give up the connection he has with his past life. It's as if he were a fish trapped in a tank. The fish wanted to visit the vast, boundless ocean, but he was reluctant to let go of the comfort and peace he had in the tank. However, everything changed. He broke free from those limits and explored the world beyond, gaining the opportunity to change his destiny finally. Soon he won't make the wrong decisions about what he wants and how he should do things. Suddenly, he begins to realize that he has just mastered the enormous amount of battle memories he absorbed before, and his combat techniques have greatly improved. With clenched fists, he understands that his teacher had already mentioned this before class, and it was enlightening. Walking away with some bags, he realizes he has made some progress and will continue to grow stronger, pursuing everything he desires. Inside his lucid dream, a zombie appears. It charges at him with full force, but the protagonist easily blocks and prepares to attack. He lands a powerful right punch, sending the creature flying far away. As he approaches, he comments that this zombie must have been a martial artist in its past life, and that it still seems capable of whispering martial arts techniques, even though it's no longer alive. Surveying the area, he mentions that according to the zombie's memories, military base number 359 is just up ahead, but it isn't swarming with countless monsters. Then several zombies begin to appear, and Lu charges at them, defeating them one by one. Looking ahead, he finally finds it. This is military base number 359. Determining his plan, he descends the mountain, then sees the enormous wall and remarks that this must be a city, not an ordinary military base. Referencing Attack on Titan, he says that even if 2 Titans appeared now, he wouldn't be surprised by anything else. Apparently, the wall is cracked in the middle, forming a V shape. Without wasting time, the protagonist begins to climb it. As he reaches the top, he starts to see the city within. He realizes the wall is very thick, at least 20 meters wide, and it's unimaginable to think what kind of battle would lead to such a breach. He comments that martial arts far surpass the zombies from his original world, and that if such a powerful civilization fell to the monsters, what would his future be like? Observing the city, he notices that one building looks different from the others, likely the military base or headquarters. However, he starts to see something there. Spotting a man sitting on the ground, he wonders what it is and realizes it's probably another zombie. Staring into its eyes, he is startled, falling back abruptly. He questions what that was and wonders if it was a shockwave and what's with that eerie aura. He decides it's better not to approach that place and that he shouldn't think about it for now. He decides that he should first explore the surrounding area, noting that the zombies below don't seem that frightening. Several zombies are walking throughout the city. Suddenly, one is hit in the eyes. After striking it, the protagonist jumps onto a fence and then onto a wall. Then he is surprised by something else. Entering a room, he remarks that there are no zombies here and that this place looks like a normal apartment. It seems that whoever was here was enjoying a meal when the apocalypse occurred. And there are no signs of forced entry, so he wonders if people transform into zombies because of that terrifying black mist. Looking to the side, he sees something different. Placing his hand on it, he wonders if it still works. Quickly, a message appears saying that the end of the world awaits and the program restarts. A blonde woman appears saying he is using the technology of the celestial law. Stammering, the boy doesn't understand anything and questions whether the holographic image is virtual reality. Calmly, he realizes that this thing is using the same language as him. The boy is shocked as the situation isn't the same as his, and he wonders if this thing has an automatic translation function or something like that. The hologram explains that it was created by the technology of the celestial law, and that it is an artificial intelligence with the 16th generation brain designed to assist him. This is Tian Yang, responsible for managing the internet server of the military base in question. The boy thinks that the technology of this future is very advanced and asks if she can show him the most recent news. The hologram tries to connect to Skynet, but it seems impossible at first until it finally succeeds. Showing the massive number of news reports, the protagonist begins to feel uneasy. He sees news about the year 11,024, about the military base being attacked, and various other details regarding a location. Then he notices that there is mention of a Class X martial artist, and that this world and his were very parallel, and their progress in martial arts is unimaginable. Then the holographic book begins to turn pages, and something catches his attention. Then he begins to see images of various monsters emerging. All of this is in front of him on a small screen. Nervous, he understands that the martial arts technology of their world has developed to an incredible level. However, even the Class X martial artists, along with a tall and sturdy wall, couldn't defend against the monsters and the black mist. Despite having abandoned the celestial body they once called home and even sending a search team into space in search of another suitable planet for humans, After the obliteration of civilization on that day, no good news was ever sent back. In other words, as expected, humans are incapable of avoiding extinction. Even with all their civilization thriving, it's lamentable. Sitting on the couch, she asks the hologram if she can investigate the history of the world. She agrees and begins retrieving the entire history of planet Earth. A large holographic scroll starts to appear in front of him. The analysis indicates that the people of this world were very strong, yet they still couldn't avoid death, and that perhaps he can learn something from their experience to prevent his world from becoming extinct as well. In the first year, huge rifts appeared around the world, and from them emerged various monsters. In the 14th year of the martial arts era, the first martial artist with strength and intent was born in the nation of the ancient dragon. And in the same year, the World Martial Arts Organization was established. Seeing the person there, the boy is shocked. He questions whether this is indeed the history of his world. Soon, he begins to realize something. The same language, the same martial arts class systems, the images he saw before. They were of another world being destroyed. They were images of his own world being destroyed 10,000 years in the future. However, he starts to wonder if perhaps this isn't the same world. He thinks it might just be a coincidence, or that the world in the images is merely a nightmare world. Then he calls the hologram, asking if she can retrieve his personal information. Quickly, she conducts a full search on Lu Sheng and finds 36 results. He begins to look through his information carefully. However, he is surprised, questioning why he only lived until 18 years old. Moreover, he wonders if he was just an ordinary citizen. He asks her to continue searching for any information about Lu Sheng from March of the year 299. However, she responds that his authority is insufficient. Guests do not have permission to access martial arts-related information. He wonders if he needs to provide blood to create an account. He questions how he would give the blood or if she has some kind of needle. Quickly, the table extends toward his finger, making a prick. This leaves the boy embarrassed and shocked. In no time, she makes a small cut and blood flows from his finger. The blood sample is collected and the analysis begins. However, her eyes widen quickly. Feeling what happened, he asks what's going on. The blood analysis is complete. Revolution plan activated. Connecting to the Revolution database of military base number 359 successfully. Access granted. Curious, he asks what she means by revolution, and if this is the plan to search for a new planet before leaving Earth. He begins to see the information, questioning why the picture changed. Analyzing carefully, he wonders if his future has changed. The description shows that he graduated with top results. At Bei Academy, he ranked 23rd in the entire city. He entered the Bei Martial Arts University. 3 years later, he joined the armed forces. After that, he served at the Tana military base and died on the southern battlefield. At 17 years of age, he was still single and was also the first official lieutenant. But he made no remarkable contributions. Surprised, he wonders if becoming stronger changed his future. And the information beyond the age of 18 matches what he remembers. The instance where his strength increased significantly before the exams was also recorded. However, no matter how impressive his story is, all this glory didn't mean much. In this database, he cannot be considered a genius. After all, in a database with over 10 years of information, there are many geniuses. And as stated, not everyone managed to leave their mark in history. However, he notices gaps in his personal information. He can only record his blood IQ level of 2012 and battle strength of 257 when he took the verified exams. If he ignores the dream world and focuses on training, breathing techniques, and uses the resources available to maintain his progression speed, he will be able to reach these values within 200 days. But if he continues cultivating and reaping the benefits of the dream world, he will definitely surpass those values. He questions how he can be satisfied with just his city ranking when he should be among the best in the global rankings, so that everyone knows of his existence. Staring at the holograms, he thinks that his future shouldn't be limited to just this. If he keeps getting stronger and continues changing his future, humanity won't go extinct, and he will become this savior with the power to change everything. As an ambitious person, he must be the one to start the revolution. Sometime later at the hero's home, he joins his mother and sister for a meal. She asks why the boy isn't wearing his uniform, wondering if there's no class today. He responds that the teacher told him he could stay home and didn't need to attend. The woman questions if that's really true, and his sister says she's never heard of anything like that. As he stands up, the boy says he's full. He mentions that he's going to his room to study, and his mother says that's good and encourages him to keep up the good work. His sister, in her mind, thinks that it feels like this boy has changed a lot, and he's no longer as cheerful as before, and that he has become deep and mysterious. After that, the boy enters his room and closes the door. Stretching, he notices someone is calling. Answering, he greets Mr. Zhang, his teacher. The man informs him that his study material has arrived and that he should come pick it up later. The man then asks why he didn't come today, as he thought they would discuss his school schedule. However, the boy responds that he doesn't have much time and needs to hang up. He says he can't explain right now, but will contact him later, and then he ends the call. He thinks that now he doesn't have time to worry about school. He needs to become stronger and surprise everyone, and that the only way to rise higher is by showing his power. He must reach the top to find a way to change the future. Then he returns to that room at the military base with the hologram. He asks her to search for all the methods, notes, and martial arts tips she can find. Doing so, she displays various research sources, and the search yields many results. The boy is very surprised, saying this is incredible, and asks her to filter only the appropriate techniques for first-level martial artists and rank them from best to worst. After completing the request, the woman begins filtering the data. She shows the ranking with the filter completed, and at the top are 3 results. The first is the technique of natural breathing. Nervous, the boy realizes that this is the best method in 10,000 years. The chapter of stellar body refinement created by Yang He, a member of the 11th tier of the Martial Arts League included in the Spark program. This natural breathing technique has an introductory chapter created by Yang Huzhao, who is a member of the 11th tier of the Martial Arts League. Additionally, there's the crystal contemplation technique with an introductory chapter created by Duan Yifeng, one of the 11th tier members of the Martial Arts League, also included in the Spark program. He understands that the strongest current martial artist is only level 9, but in front of him are 3 techniques from level 11 martial artists, and this is incredible. Even if they are just introductory chapters, the value of these things is unimaginable. All these techniques were included in the Spark project, and it seems that his martial arts Li ancestors already knew their fate, and that even if they couldn't do anything, they had to preserve their knowledge, hoping that someone in the future would pass these notes forward. Stellar alchemy. The human body is configured as a miniature universe, allowing the mind to detach and keep the spirit nearby. Refining what? The blood, strengthening the body, refining every mental cell to transform each into a cell of inconceivable power. Also transforming the blood into a river of stars and the body into a field of infinite changes. By doing so, one's audacity reaches an extreme level, and one's defense and strength reach unimaginable levels. His blood and ki boil, becoming as majestic as a river of stars. He understands that this is insane, and that if the effect of the previous body refinement technique was a 1, then the stellar refinement technique or stellar alchemy is 1,000 or even more. So he prepares for the natural breathing technique, starting with the first form, the fire breath. Suddenly, a lot of fire begins to emerge from the protagonist. Opening his eyes, he is surprised, realizing that this is the fire breath technique. It's as if several fiery flames are emanating from his body, and even his blood is boiling. And this is just the first technique. There are still many others with different attributes. After this, he will proceed with the crystal vision technique. This technique purifies the mind and strengthens the will. It deals with the most mysterious aspect of martial arts practice, spiritual power. He wonders if he will need to train his spiritual power, so he begins to try. A blue energy starts to envelop him. Opening his eyes, he realizes he is in the spiritual world and sees a giant white man standing before him. He begins to understand that spiritual will is crucial in martial arts practice, and that a martial artist with strong, undistracted willpower can easily surpass one with weak willpower focused solely on strength. However, he questions how he can practice this, as he knows nothing like it in his world. Sighing, he says it may take some time to achieve. Some time later, he opens his eyes. He realizes he is back in his world, feeling extremely tired, and this doesn't seem like just a simple dream. Looking at his arm, he says it smells bad and wonders if it's really his sweat. He says this came from the dream world, so he understands that it also affects his real world, and he thinks that's great. Taking off his shirt, he goes to take a bath because these 2 techniques are multiplying within his body, and it's amazing how they can eliminate impurities from it. Holding the vial, he says that his training is progressing rapidly, and that once he receives his scholarships, he will be able to start making medicine. And it will be a rare recipe never seen before. Not only will his powers increase, but he will also impact the global pharmaceutical industry. The next day at Bay Area Academy, Professor John hands him a card, saying that he should at least inform them before planning to come to school. The boy takes the card and apologizes for causing so much trouble. Dong tells him he can leave if he's busy, but to make sure he comes to school at least once a week. As the boy walks away, he thinks that only 2 days have passed since their last meeting. However, he feels that he can no longer understand him. Lou is already outside the school walking down the street. He thinks that now he finally has some money, but he needs to solve the issue of ki and blood deficiency as soon as possible. With the medical recipes he obtained, he will be able to produce the most efficient supplements in the future. And according to the recipes in the database, the most suitable supplements for him are muscle broth and blood strengthening soup. He needs to use professional equipment even if it's just a simple medicinal broth, which is why he needs a suitable pharmaceutical laboratory. However, he realizes he cannot afford one as he doesn't have enough money to buy it, so he decides to try renting a pharmacy's facilities. The man is shocked, questioning if he really wants to rent his pharmaceutical laboratory. He probably thinks it's a joke, saying that the laboratory is the most valuable facility in the entire pharmacy, so he rudely declines and slams the door in his face. Sighing, the boy understands that this was the 7th shop he asked, just as he expected. Opening his bag, he sees that he has already purchased all the necessary ingredients to make the muscle and blood-enhancing soup, and he has more than enough to make several portions. Looking at the card, he realizes it doesn't just have 30, but a total of 80, and he thinks the man contributed a small amount of his own money. He understands that if he cannot rent the laboratory, he will have to buy some basic equipment online and try to make it at home. Entering a place, he notices something strange. He wonders if there's a pharmacy nearby and why it looks so suspicious. He enters, politely asking for permission. A man is at the counter, using his phone. Suddenly, he notices the entry of a potential customer. The boy begins to speak, and then the attendant tells him to look around, and if he wants to buy something, bring the items to the counter and pay for them. The boy says he isn't planning to buy, and then the attendant responds, warning him not to think about robbing the store as there are several surveillance cameras around him. In his mind, the protagonist thinks that even though the previous pharmacy attendant was rude, at least he asked if he needed anything, whereas in this pharmacy it seems they're not interested in doing business. Meanwhile, the blonde man is looking at a picture of a woman on his phone. However, the hero suddenly smashes his phone, breaking it completely. The attendant becomes very irritated and asking what he's doing. As the attendant questions what's going on, the hero stares at him with a frightening intensity. Nervous, the man asks what he wants. Approaching, the boy asks if he has a pharmaceutical laboratory nearby, and the attendant responds by asking if he's even there to buy medicine. Smiling, the boy says that if the laboratory is available, he'd like to make a deal. Sometime later, they walk to the shop's laboratory. The attendant shows him the place and size. He says it will be $500 per hour and that they will charge the full amount even if he doesn't use the lab for the entire hour, and he can only use the lab for 3 hours. The boy says he understands and will pay in advance. Pleased, the attendant says that's great and that he can do whatever he wants. The hero immediately starts putting on his lab coat. He says they're going to begin, and this will be his first time making medicine. First, he needs to prepare his ingredients. For this mutant lizard with green patterns, he needs to remove its scales to activate it. Then he needs to add the neutralizer, fixing the concentration at 85% and maintaining the solution at a constant storm. Next, he needs to liquefy the condensed moonstone using a laser transmitter. This way, he will convert the material to a liquid state and collect it, letting it cool for a while. Finally, he needs to cut a small portion, and this mutant jar is extremely tough, so he must be very precise. After processing all the ingredients, adjusting their medicinal properties, and mixing them, he will finally obtain the muscle and blood enrichment suit. Holding the vial, he realizes he succeeded and he didn't expect to manage it on his first try. However, he knows he'll only find out his creation was successful after consuming it. Without hesitation, he begins to drink the purple liquid from the vial. He says he doesn't feel anything, not even a taste, and wonders if it failed. Then his body begins to tremble. Falling to the ground, he breaks the vial, however. He starts to scream as if in immense pain. Lying on his back, he begins to pant heavily. He says the effects of the supplements are extremely strong. He realizes that he underestimated the potency of the supplement, believing it would have incredible effects without any side effects. He notices that it even increases his skin's density, reduces pores, clears it, and much more. Then someone begins knocking on the laboratory door. Opening it, he says the time isn't up yet and tells them not to disturb him. Desperate, the man says there's no time to explain, but he needs to run out the back door because his boss has returned. A woman steps out of her car. She then walks toward the laboratory. Sometime later, she's already inside her lab. She picks up various potions from a box. Then she takes a vial of green liquid. Irritated, she says it's still not good, that the medicinal effects are too weak, and the properties aren't even noticeable, and that this won't do at all. On the TV, a man appears, speaking about rising up, letting the past fade like the wind, and not letting yesterday's scars affect today. This man claims he took dragon testosterone pills and says it was worth it. Seeing this, the woman thinks that the habit of practicing martial arts and the complementary pharmaceutical industry are changing every day, and that new and better medications are being released every day as well. She reflects that her family's decline was due to their conservative thinking, adhering to old habits and resting on their profits. She thinks that Changsha Medicinal Hall still sells old medicines from years ago and has completely lost its competitive edge in the market. Biting her finger, she thinks that if things continue like this, and if she doesn't find new medical prescriptions, her family business, which her father personally entrusted to her, will collapse. Turning around, she says she knows how to collaborate with experienced alchemist doctors, and that Mr. Zhang recently developed a new medical prescription, and she needs to get her hands on it as soon as possible. This way, her family will rise from the ashes. Seeing his boss, the boy stammers, asking if she wasn't supposed to go to the neighboring city today. The room falls silent, and he continues, saying she returned so quickly. Complimenting her, he says she looks as beautiful as ever, her walk is elegant, and her stunning beauty will forever make her his goddess. He begins to fantasize about a future where they are together. He imagines pursuing both his career and love and eventually conquering everything he wants in life. She calls his attention, and the man, practically drooling, says he is there for her. Annoyed, she demands an explanation about his dirty lab coat and asks if he secretly brought someone into her alchemy laboratory. Nervous, the man replies that he didn't bring anyone and asks why he would do such a thing. With her hands on her face, the woman tells him to forget it and says he doesn't need to come in tomorrow. Throwing the lab coat in the trash, she calls him an idiot, saying she's very angry. She states that she'll have to wash, clean, and disinfect everything again, including the table. She also mentions that they even use her laser activator and controller. Looking to the side, she notices the green-scaled lizard without its scales and comments that the scales, the most valuable part, have been removed, and she's never heard of such a method. She remarks that it seems like someone with their head in the clouds is trying to develop their own medicine. But this requires a lot of experimentation, and she wonders what kind of thing the person was attempting to make. However, she questions whether placing hope in something unrealistic is exactly what she's doing now. Looking at the floor, she realizes that besides using her laboratory and equipment, the person also broke some items. Curious, she begins to pick up the broken vial on the floor. Noticing its appearance and smell, she recognizes the condensed moonstone and realizes it's undergoing a strange reaction. Analyzing it carefully, she understands that she's never seen medicine like this before. Very intrigued, she takes a drop from the broken vial, bringing it to her mouth to taste. Suddenly, her eyes widen and she's left stunned. Sighing and carrying his bags, the attendant mutters that it's all that damn boy's fault, and if he had known, he wouldn't have taken his money. Looking back, he mumbles about how he can't believe this is where the story ends. However, he soon notices the woman running after him. She calls out to the boy named Mafi, telling him not to leave and to stop right there. In response, the man starts to cry. He leads toward her, saying he's not going anywhere, that his place is eternally by her side. However, she grabs him by the collar, demanding to know who used her laboratory and insisting on seeing him immediately. She asks if he's deaf and tells him that if he finds the person, he can return to his job with double the salary. Trembling, the boy says he has his contact information. Without hesitation, the woman grabs his phone immediately. She thinks that the medicine used was blood-based and that its strengthening effect is at least 10 times better than the blood-strengthening tonic that costs $100,000 on the market. She also realizes that he even used effects to improve the skin of his animals, and on top of all that, the main components are 2 common ingredients. She notes that the price could be less than $5,000, making it a new world-class tonic. Calling, she says she has finally found the opportunity her family needed. Meanwhile, the protagonist is in his void, meditating as if he's increasing his spiritual energy at that very moment. After his training, he begins to awaken. The stellar body refinement technique was inspired by a martial arts technique by Jin Shanxi. The incredible ability to awaken the human body's potential is simply beyond human comprehension. And the natural breathing technique is also phenomenal, possessing immense power. Without the complementary action of this breathing technique, the effects of the stellar body refinement technique wouldn't be nearly as effective. His vitality has also increased significantly. He made 12 portions of that medicine, and given his current physical state, 2 portions a day would be sufficient. Suddenly, he realizes someone is calling him. Without saying anything, he picks up his phone to see who it is. Noticing that the man has answered, a woman speaks, saying she saw the tonic he left behind. She comments that it is destined to be a product that will change its era, inviting him to collaborate and promote the product. The man replies that they can meet in a week, and the woman is taken aback, asking if it could be now. Irritated, she decides to take it out on her employee. She orders that from this moment, he is responsible for finding this master. She promises that if he finds him within 6 days, she will pay $10,000 for each day he saves. Overjoyed and surprised, he stammers, saying he'll keep her promise. However, he questions if she might have misunderstood something. He explains that the boy using the laboratory isn't even 20 years old, and judging by his appearance, he's a student, questioning if he really is the alchemist master she's talking about. With this information, the woman is completely shocked to learn he is a student. Nervous, she wonders who exactly this person is. Back in the protagonist's nightmare realm, he throws a powerful uppercut at a monster, hitting it with all his strength. From a distance, another zombie is holding something in its hands. Focused, the boy tells it to come at him, saying that today's target is it. Rushing forward, he remarks that he wants to see if a rank 1 martial artist can withstand a rank 4 martial artist like the zombie. Quickly, the zombie charges as well, delivering a punch to the protagonist's chest, which he manages to block. However, the hero is quick, dodging and getting behind the monster. He lands a precise kick to its neck. Missing an arm, the zombie falls to the ground. Looking up, it sees Lu charging in to finish it off. He lands a powerful kick, causing a loud impact. Panting, he observes the zombie being defeated with relative ease. He comments that this one died on the front lines while fighting monsters to protect its city, and that they are not mere monsters used just to farm XP, but rather people who died defending humanity, the spirits of the brave who have passed. Analyzing, he realizes that this zombie was actually a rank 5 martial artist when it was alive, which explains why its punches were so strong. It's been almost a week since he learned the new techniques, and at this pace, his vitality has increased rapidly with muscle growth and blood strengthening, in addition to fully absorbing the fist techniques and memories. He understands that if he integrates the secret technique of the stellar body refinement and the natural breathing technique, he will be able to exert a power hundreds of times greater than his current one. As he analyzes all of this, the monster begins to appear. Preparing to attack with energy, he decides to name this integrated attack Stellar Impact. Sometime later, back in the real world, the hero returns to the store in question. He says he'd like to rent an evaluation machine and asks if one is available. Laughing, the attendant asks why he's back and if it's because the exams are about to start, reminding him that vitality isn't something that improves overnight. The boy understands that this is the second time he's come here in just 1 month and that most people only do evaluations once a month or even every 6 months. But then the woman tells him he can go ahead because room 206 is available. Inside the room, he says that if his skills have improved so quickly, he should come here to track the improvement of his stats, and will check his vitality first. Placing his hand on the device, he sees that his vitality is 15.6, which has increased so much that it has already exceeded the standards of a rank 2 martial artist. He realizes that supreme martial arts techniques and other advanced supplements from 10 years in the future would only match these stats if they were lower than this. Rolling up his sleeves, he understands that it's time to test his combat power. Getting straight to the point, he delivers a direct punch to the mannequin, but it's so strong that it starts to emit smoke. Seeing the score, something catches his attention. His combat power is TT 137, which is more than double the required standard. He realizes that if his ability affects his combat power, then his supreme combat power must be even greater. He tries another strike, this time using his stellar impact ability. After the test, he exits the room and approaches the attendant. Calling him a kid, she asks if he's finished and notes that he seems quite happy. Smiling, the boy says he is indeed very happy. Signing him off, she wishes him good luck on his exams. The boy walks out smiling as a blonde approaches. The attendant comments that looking at that kid this way, he's quite cute when he smiles. Then someone calls her. This is Mai Swan, the daughter of the master of the Hongjuan Martial Arts Academy. The girl remarks that she brought her brother back and asks who the person was that came for an evaluation. Laughing, the woman says that guy is just a normal student, but he's quite cute. In the background, the boy remarks that there's no point in being handsome since that won't help her survive. The attendant remarks that in today's society, what matters are professionals in martial arts, and judging by his posture and clothing, he seems like just an ordinary kid. The woman reflects, thinking that the poor attend school, but true martial arts are for the wealthy. The resources needed for martial arts cultivation are a big part of the reason for this saying. She knows her brother has been taking tonics since he was young. His lethality is much greater than others even before he started cultivating, and that others continue to grow a lot. Hitting the boy, she tells him not to compare himself with kids who don't have the same privileges. She says that since he has access to good resources, it's his duty to be stronger than others, and he shouldn't forget his origins because of that. Tearing up, the boy admits he was wrong and looks at his sister. He says he wants to discuss something with her and wants to see the results after that person's evaluation. He comments that the person seems a bit older than him and must be a student. He just wants to see if his hard work has paid off. The blonde agrees but says that he's just an ordinary person who shouldn't boast. The attendant says he's the only one who came for an evaluation today and that she can pull up his results right here. Seeing the results, the blonde is incredulous, saying that this is impossible. Falling to the ground, the boy questions if the device is broken. However, the woman responds that it was checked yesterday and everything is fine. The blonde then wonders if these results are truly accurate. She says they must contact their available staff and gather information on nearby students to find him quickly. She begins to look at the tablet with the result, staring at his photo, and says she will definitely find him. Sometime later, elsewhere in the city, Lucio bids farewell to the taxi driver, who laughs, saying he enjoyed the chat and that next time he would introduce his daughter. Nervous, the boy understands that this guy is quite enthusiastic and that if he had known earlier, he would have said he was there to take the martial arts certification exam. Approaching the building, he goes to open the door. A man rushes in, saying it's impossible because his combat power at home was clearly 150, and this year, how can this be happening? Another explains that the evaluation devices used by the Martial Arts Association are personalized and more accurate than those sold elsewhere. Smiling, the boy thinks this is great because it's more precise and he can finally call on it to understand his true strength. He then walks through the lobby to the reception. He asks how he can take the martial artist certification test. The woman asks him to fill out the application form first and then proceed to room 5203. After that, he arrives at the room. He is faced with a long queue of people waiting for the test. He thinks this is a waste of time and estimates that he should be taking the test now. He then overhears two guys talking about a girl, saying how beautiful she is. One comments that she is not only very beautiful but also strong and she seems blessed by the heavens. He notices that most people in line are around 25 years old, which makes him one of the youngest, but the girl appears even younger than him. Suddenly, a very large man enters the room. He grabs everyone's attention, asking for permission and apologizing. Another man says that this is the moment he embarks on the path of martial arts and is starting a new phase in his life. However, the large man steps in front of him, asking to pass. The man, easily 3 times the size of the other, still apologizes as he moves. Everyone is shocked by how strong and tall this guy is. A woman complains, asking who he is, and says that it's about arrival time, so he should wait in line. She insists he can't do that. but the person in charge of the test explains that he can because of his application form. His name is Zhang, and he's a level 3 martial artist, so he gets to be first in the test. The one is incredulous that he's a level 3 martial artist, and everyone is surprised. They comment that this is very rare and that there are only 10 level 3 martial artists in the entire city. Only the protagonist understands that in the martial arts world, strength is everything, and with strength, you gain many privileges. With that, the level 3 muscular man heads toward the test. The woman remarks that it's just a level 3 martial artist and you don't become one simply by participating. However, the score starts to appear. Everyone is shocked to see the results showing a value of 107, and it's the first time they've seen a key blood score above 100 with their own eyes, which is incredible. The person conducting the test then announces that it's time for the second part, the combat power test. At that moment, the man throws a punch so powerful that everyone steps back. Meanwhile, the protagonist remains focused, watching his potential opponent. The instructor, upon seeing the result, is stunned. In the combat power test, his score is 10,831. The display indicates that this is amazing, declaring him officially recognized as a level 3 martial artist by the association, eligible for a monthly allowance of 30,000 won. Looking back, he notices both the young girl and the protagonist. The girl remarks that a blood score above 100 and a combat power above 10,000 make him a level 3 martial artist, and the pressure from the wind after the punch was intense. Lu comments if this is the level of a level 3 martial artist. Surprised, the girl wonders what he means by that, thinking that it's hard enough just to stay steady under the wind pressure of someone like that. What is this guy trying to pretend? Approaching the instructor, he asks if he can take the test. He notes that there's no one else in line. Smiling, the instructor is surprised that he's still calm after witnessing that punch. Whether it's enthusiasm or confidence, he tells him he can begin the test. Laughing, the instructor advises him not to be nervous and to keep his heartbeat steady as usual. When he places his hand on the ball, his score appears, 15.7. Everyone is shocked, including the girl, who wonders if that guy isn't around 17 or 18 years old. From a distance, the muscular man notices that the boy is a level 2 martial artist at 18 years old, which is remarkably young for such high blood values. The instructor tells him to relax and not let Jeo's punch affect him, and that he can attempt the combat test as many times as he likes. In response, the boy laughs and thanks him, but says there's no need. Preparing himself, he states that one punch is enough. At that moment, both the muscular man and the girl focus their attention on the protagonist. A huge purple light erupts in the room as the protagonist delivers a punch so powerful it shatters the glass in front of him. This shocks the muscular man, leaving everyone else in the audience astonished, as his combat power registers at 15,709,140. He reflects that after mastering the fist technique along with others, his combat power has increased tenfold compared to the standard equipment vitality requirements. Stuttering in disbelief, the instructor congratulates him, commenting that his abilities surpass those of even rank 2 and rank 3 martial artists. He apologizes, saying he can't give him an immediate certification jump, but assures him that he will report this to his superiors at the association right away, calling him a genius. He shouts that he will report it immediately, and that he's risking his career to guarantee a satisfying response. He tells him not to worry. The boy then asks if that means he can go home now. Looking back, he notices the muscular man approaching and asks if he needs something from him. From the expression, it seems like the man is about to attack, but surprisingly, he extends his hand, introducing himself as Zhao Changfeng. The hero silently stares before responding and introducing himself as Lu Sheng. The big guy becomes very excited. Quickly, several people from the test crowd gather around the hero, taking photos and asking to shake his hand as well. In response, the boy starts to run away from the crowd. Outside the building, someone asks if Sister Chen Yuliang hasn't come out yet. The blonde asks if she did well, saying that a rank 1 martial artist certification evaluation should be easy for a genius like her. Suddenly, the girl notices someone approaching. Upon closer inspection, she realizes it's her brother. He walks up to them and asks what they are doing here. Surprised, she says she should be the one asking that, pointing out that he's always wasting time sleeping and questioning what he's doing at the Martial Arts Association. He says he had something to do and asks what they're doing there as well. One of the girls introduces herself, saying they are his sister's classmates, and that they came to witness the scene of their martial arts club participating in the evaluation. Laughing, she comments that he's very handsome and quite different from how Qing described him. Annoyed, she asks if they already forgotten who looks out for them at school. Ruffling their hair, she says she's leaving and waves goodbye. One of them remarks that it looks like they were expelled and super irritated. The girl says no way, calling them traitors. Suddenly, senior sister Yang arrives and she asks how it went and if she passed. Yang says she doesn't want to talk about it. The desperate incident during the evaluations caused them to be suspended, and they'll likely have to wait until later. Nervous, one of them asks what could have caused the evaluations to be suspended. She explains that a demon, some guy clearly their age, scored a vitality of 15.7 and a combat power greater than a rank 3, over 15,000. Then one of them asks, just to be sure, what the guy's name was, and the woman says his name was Lu Sheng, leaving them all stunned and terrified. The girl asks if she's talking about her brother. Elsewhere, the protagonist notices some commotion as several women gossip about martial artists. He wonders why there's such a fuss and says it has nothing to do with him. Looking at his phone, he notices the medicine card calling again. He decides to ignore it, figuring that all this future medicinal knowledge could make him very rich. However, he knows he'll have to investigate first and see which ones are worthwhile. Sometime later at his home, the hero is deep in concentration. Clicking on the device, he asks the optical mind to activate. Then he politely asks the hologram to retrieve his biography, and it promptly complies. He then sees his entire biography, all the way up to when he becomes old. Seeing this, he is quite startled. He became a level 2 martial artist at 18 and participated in prodigy training camps in another province, ranking among the top 20. 3 years later, he grew artist at 18 and participated in prodigy training camps in another province, ranking among the top 20. 3 years later, he graduated from the Martial Arts University and joined the military, retiring as a 5-star captain and founding the Sacred Martial Arts Academy. He was promoted to a rank 6 martial artist at 45 and attempted to become a rank S martial master at 58 but failed. After all this, he died in a monster trap in the city of Bahia in July at the age of 87. Seeing all this, he realizes that his future can be changed, at least his own. Because a week ago, all the information was very different, and he was supposed to die at 37. However, all this is still far from what he truly wants. Because for his world and its future, this change is ultimately useless. If he wants to change humanity's entire fate 31 years from now when calamity strikes, he will need much, much greater power. Thus, being a rank 6 martial artist is nothing, and even a rank 7 master or a rank 9 martial saint would be useless in reversing this future. In other words, he will have to reach the peak of martial arts, achieve rank 10 or even rank 11, and only then will there be some hope. Even if it's just a glimmer, since he chose this path, he's not going back. A man is writing something with a brush on parchment while listening to his leader speak. The man says that if President Xian put this much effort into educating others, it would be even better. Laughing, he asks the old leader to stop teasing him. This is Show Yu, Assistant Director of the Martial Artists Association of Bahia, Level 6. He explains that he's not against people from the city, but knows that Bahia doesn't have a centennial family to rely on, and they don't have the capacity to provide significant resources. Any contact with the slightest talent would leave by all means, and there's nothing he can do about it. Hearing this, the man remains silent and mentions that the training camp is almost here, which startles the other man. He says it's been years since they sent anyone to participate in such a large organization like Bahia, and he should forget about this whim. And this time, no matter what, he must protect the city's population. Irritated, he says he wants nothing more than to discover a genius, improve, and advance. He thinks that if he were in a top position with all those resources, he could write all those gods here. Leveling up would be impossible otherwise. Just then, a woman enters the room saying that something happened during the martial arts evaluation. The man asks why she is so upset and why she didn't even knock on the door. Desperate, the girl apologizes and says that the action is important and that just now the evaluator said she had very important information. She says that during the evaluation, an 18-year-old level 2 martial artist appeared with a battle power of 15,000. In shock, he tells her to quickly show the recording. Focused, he starts looking at the tablet, watching the protagonist in action. He asks if that is a perfect realm combat technique, and she asks what that means. Explaining, he says that it is a technology used in the martial arts world, and that she just needs to know that cultivating a realm technique at that age is something less than 10 people in the world are capable of. In shock, he realizes that even if it is a perfect realm technique, it's impossible based on a blood value of 15.7 and key level. He is surprised to understand that he is 18 years old and has a battle power 10 times the average blood and key value coming from an ordinary family. Then he concludes that it must be this. There is no other explanation. Quickly, he starts laughing a lot. Lifting her in his arms, he calls her sweetie and says that this martial artist is 1 in a billion and has appeared in their city. He starts getting very excited, and she asks what a special martial artist means. He explains that among those who cultivate, there is a martial artist with a special gift. They will awaken a power so enormous that an ordinary person cannot even imagine, and their blood and psi levels will increase after awakening, and they will possess a unique talent. Excited, he leaves the room, saying he must especially go to Lu Sheng's house and properly visit his parents to thank them for giving birth to such a wonderful son. Elsewhere, a man appears saying he has found Lu Sheng. He says his name is Lu Sheng, that he is a student at the Barai Institution, and that his father works at the docks while his mother works as a cashier at a supermarket. The boy asks what they are looking for in this person if he has annoyed them, and that he is just a boy from an ordinary family. Then the girl tells him to shut up. Taking her phone, she says she knew they would be fast, but she didn't expect them to be this quick. Nai tells the boy to go and buy the proper expensive gifts for the parents and for a young girl right now. With the phone in hand, she thinks she has finally found him, while her subordinates ask if she is really going to get married. In his room, the boy is focused when someone knocks on his door. His sister tells him to come quickly, that someone is looking for him, and he thinks he hasn't heard Lai King call him brother in a long time and wonders who could have arrived. Then he finally reaches the living room and encounters two people. His mother tells him to come over quickly, and the man starts introducing himself, saying it's a pleasure to meet him. He explains that he is the president of the Artists Association at Baha University and has come especially to speak with him about the evaluation results. Mainly, he thinks this guy must be at least level 6, and then says it's a pleasure to meet him. Mostly, the man understands that he is not scared and remains calm, and his temperament alone is something rare to see. His mother then explains that this is Miss Nai Shuang from the Hongchuan Martial Arts Center. Introducing himself, he says it's a pleasure to meet her, and that they have met before at the Martial Arts Center but wonders if he remembers. Then the man responds that yes, he does, and says hello to Miss Nai. Intervening, the man says he will be brief. He has come to talk to him about the level 2 badge because his level has already far exceeded the standard. Therefore, he says that his monthly allowance will be measured as that of a level 3. Not only that, but he has decided to give him a monetary reward of $1 million as a form of encouragement. This leaves his parents completely shocked, asking for someone to pinch them. Continuing, the man says he hopes he can continue working hard on his journey and keep achieving more brilliance. The boy then thanks him for all the encouragement and support given by him and the association. However, he says that nothing is free in this world and that he will have to repay the kindness. So he asks what he wants him to do. Sighing, the man says that he is indeed broadening his horizons. Handing something over, he says he hopes he will join the talent training field in Dongning province. Standing up, he wonders if they are talking about the training field and realizes that, indeed, it is the training field that gathers all the special martial artists, but it is also the place that destroys talents. He tells the story of O Senior, known as the greatest potential in the martial arts sector, who participated in this training field and became just an ordinary person due to trauma. He tells the boy that his future is bright and that there is no need to take such a risk. Then the man responds, acknowledging that indeed there are risks. However, he explains that this place is the solution for true talents and that the newcomers in the city should be considered nothing but commoners compared to them. But he says that, in any case, he will respect his decision and asks what he will choose. At that moment, the boy starts smiling, saying that he is right and that he also believes he hasn't reached his limit yet. Sighing, the man says he will come to pick him up in 2 days, and if not, he will no longer bother him. As he stands up, he says he will see him in 2 days. After the man leaves, the protagonist calls Miss Ni and asks for an explanation as to why she is here. Then the girl starts to blush, feeling embarrassed, thinking that he looks much more handsome in person than in the photos. She explains that she came to deliver an invitation to Mr. Lu Sheng, which is an invitation to become an honorary disciple of the Hongchuan Martial Arts Center. Curious, the boy asks what it means to be an honorary disciple. She explains that the disciple doesn't need to attend regular training all the time and all the classes and equipment are free, even his own father could be his instructor. Nai says that he will need to take on a responsibility functioning as a title. She thinks that if she can spread the news that he is an 18-year-old level 2, his popularity will explode and she can even see parents fighting to enroll their children. Abruptly, the protagonist declines the invitation and thanks her. In shock, she says they can discuss the benefits and there's no need to reject it outright. Then he says he can be an honorary member, and they can also announce that he trains at the center. However, he states that he will not be a disciple and doesn't need that title, but can join them if they accept his terms. Seeing this, the girl is shocked but says it's a deal and that the honorary title will be exclusive to the Hongchuan Martial Arts Center. She says they will send a monthly allowance of about $1,000 directly to his home and that they will not bother him any further. After that, the girl also leaves and closes the door. At that moment, his parents call him. His mother wonders if she's dreaming about a school offering $1 million and an allowance of $100,000, and his father is in shock, questioning since when he was a level 2 martial artist. Both of them ask what is happening. Taking his mother's hand, he tells her that all of this is real and that she no longer needs to work the night shift, as staying up late isn't good for her health. He also tells his father that he doesn't need to strain his back doing that kind of work anymore because his spine has already suffered enough. He says that now he also makes money and that soon they can both stop working so hard. Sometime later in the philanthropy hall, the woman is very irritated, biting her fingers, saying that it's been a week and she still doesn't have his name. She looked through all the recent pharmaceutical documents but didn't find anything and questions where this genius came from, as the drug he created and the studies conducted on it yielded shocking results. Not only is it stronger than class 1 and 2 drugs, but it is also stronger than most class 3 drugs in addition to the numerous benefits it offers. Despite all of this, its production cost is less than $3,000, while class 3 drugs can cost up to $200,000, making this the most innovative drug of the century. Angrily, she slams her hand on the table, asking the employee where this guy is, as he couldn't have just disappeared for no reason. Nervously, the boy says he found him. Standing up in surprise, she asks where he is, and then he points. The newspaper reports that yesterday a martial arts genius appeared in the city and that he passed through there. There are 7 level 2 martial arts skills at only 8 years old, and his battle power exceeds the average of level 3 martial artists. This genius is named Lu Sheng, and he is currently a student at the Barrier Institute. Seeing all this, the girl is in shock, questioning how he can be just a student. Sometime later in the sea of trees, a bird is by a beautiful stream when it notices something and begins flapping its wings, flying away. Suddenly, energy rushes past it, startling the bird. It's Lu Sheng running at full speed. He didn't think he could use the fixed star power himself. With his power quadrupled by the fixed star alongside the stabilization of the land of dreams and his agility, he is able to reach new limits. So he decides to call this the cloud-chasing step. After running so much, he stands atop a mountain. Calmly, he looks at the beautiful view with the radiant sun. He thinks that this is how the lateral breathing technique should be used, and with each breath he takes, he absorbs the energy from the air. His body is constantly recovering, continuously pushing its limits, and at the same time, he can sense everything around him. Quickly, he tries to throw a punch into the air, producing a large shockwave. Seeing this, he gets excited, saying that his QE will increase significantly, and that his fixed star power has risen, and soon he believes he will be 600 times stronger. He says this gain is incredible, that he had only come to this solitary mountain to collect ingredients for the pill, but he didn't expect to advance in cultivation. With it in hand, he comments that he already has his tonic for spiritual muscles, and that the effects of the tonic diminish over time, so he will improve the nutrition pill. Now in the forest, he says he made the order for herbs at the foot of the mountain, and it should be ready. Preparing to run, he says it's the perfect chance to see how fast he can descend the slope. After a while, he is at the base of the solitary mountain. He approaches the man's leg and says that he was the one who placed the herb order, asking if they are ready. Responding, the man tells him not to worry, they are already prepared and all are here. He begins to inspect each of them, and the man assures him that they are all here and very fresh. He says he wants 10 bags of each, and according to their agreement, they are 500 per bag. The man responds, saying they are 1,000 per bag, not 500, and that he must buy all the herbs here. Seeing this attitude, the boy simply remains silent. Then he questions what he means by that. The man says he is not crazy about the forest of trees, and that it will be exactly as he said, and that when he is here, he must follow his rules. Several of his companions appear, and he asks if his parents didn't teach him that sometimes it's better to stop resisting. Emanating great power, he asks if they all want to force him into their schemes. Laughing, he says it's better not to act smart before earning a level 1 mark. Then, the man starts to become frantic and excited, saying that if he doesn't want to listen, he can't be blamed for giving him a taste of his fists. However, with just one hand, the boy shatters an entire rock, leaving everyone in shock. They are stunned and very confused by what just happened. The protagonist asks them a question. He asks when exactly he was supposed to stop resisting in this situation. Showing his hand, everyone freezes. Falling to the ground, they apologize, saying they were completely wrong and blinded by their greed. The boy says that now that they understand, he will take the things and be on his way. Then the merchant tells him he can take everything on the house. Smiling, he says that their parents should also have taught them that trust is of utmost importance when doing business, so they must be honest with their clients. They thank him for the advice, saying they will engrave it in their hearts, and that a new chapter in their lives will begin. The boy thinks that he was even willing to pay the guy, but since he said it was on the house, there was nothing to be done. And only the merchant wonders what kind of world this is and if, by chance, all the new students are this insane, considering he crushed that rock with a single blow. Then, a day passes. The hero arrives by car at the Dongying province at the talent training field. Walking through the place, he wonders if this is the training field and thinks that this place looks more like a military base. Then he sees 2 young men and notices that they are possibly wearing military badges, and he wonders if it is mandatory to wear them here, as his badge was placed on the pedestal by his mother at home. The man approaches, asking which city he is from and if he is there alone. He responds, saying that he came from Bahi City and that he had some problems. The girl asks if everyone from the city of Bahia hasn't already entered. In response, her friend says he must have taken the last spot at the last minute, and that he doesn't even have a badge. Analyzing, the instructor realizes that he came alone and asks if, by any chance, he is Lu Sheng, the student that the president of the Martial Arts Association mentioned. Laughing, another person says that's why he's the president's favorite. The same one comments that he must have received many favors behind the scenes, and then the instructor tells everyone to be quiet. Pointing, he says that he can enter with the UN City group and that, as soon as he enters, the ceremony and integration will begin. As he enters the place, he wonders why they have to enter in groups for the integration ceremony and figures it must not be a regular ceremony. However, he starts hearing a strange noise, the sound of chains, as the gate begins to close. Everyone starts getting nervous, questioning what is happening and asking if they are being locked in. The man explains that their mission is to find the exit, which is on the other side of the passage. If they succeed, they will pass, but if they fail, they will be sent away. Everyone is shocked, irritated by this shortcut for an integration ceremony that suddenly turned into a test. Quickly, the ground opens up and everyone becomes frightened, but the protagonist stays focused. Right after that, they fall to the ground unscathed. The man who hit his head on the ground with the tube says that hurt and asks what kind of cheap trap this is. Looking to the side, the hero notices the giant corridor. The minister quickly concentrates, having some sort of X-rayed vision of the place. He thinks that it's not an ordinary passage and questions what kind of dark beings those are and why the effect of metal strength is so useless. One of the boys comments that he expected a more elaborate trap and that this is just boring. Another one calls out to his friend Lin Xiao, asking if he knew about this from the start and why he didn't warn everyone. The boy comments that he has no adaptability at all and that he shouldn't go around saying he's a city genius as it will ruin his image. Another student gets irritated with the boy's arrogance, insulting him while a girl tells them to stop fighting right now. She says that they are all from the same city and that it wasn't easy for them to enter this training field, so they should work together. Lin Xiao says she is right and that all this city should work together, and it would be terrible if they lost to someone because this is an extremely talented field. Pointing to the hero, he says that there might be an extra person here and wonders if this kind-hearted stranger is willing to explore the place for them. Nervous, the girl says it's not a good idea, but laughing, the guy says it's a great idea. The little mounts to help them test the traps. In response, the hero simply sighs and says he can go. The boy comments that he better try hard. If he does well, maybe he can join them. Looking back, the protagonist says that predators walk alone and that only prey travel in packs, leaving the arrogant boy visibly unsettled. The conceited boy questions how he dares call him prey and says he's going to kill him. However, he quickly notices something strange approaching. It's several giant red spheres. One of them falls in front of the hero, who realizes they are mechanical puppets, similar to robots. Lin Xiao comments that even the weakest mechanical puppet is stronger than a level 1 martial artist, and there are many of them. Looking back, he sees all the students frightened, not knowing what to do. It is known that mechanical puppets can be programmed to fight all day with high-level martial artists, and even so, it costs much more to create a mechanical puppet of this level than to train a rank 4 martial artist. Lin Xiao questions if the country bumpkin is crazy, saying that when activated, the puppets will attack anyone who moves near them. With arms crossed, another says that this guy isn't even a rank 1 martial artist, and he'll be knocked out with the first punch. One of the girls shouts for him to be careful. At that moment, the puppet's fist approaches the hero. Suddenly, a massive explosion occurs in the area. The impact is so strong that the students close their eyes and shield themselves. After the dust settles, they see the hero holding the puppet with one hand. Shocked, the arrogant one wonders if he actually managed to stop the punch. This leaves all the students present in awe. Smiling, the protagonist asks if that's all they've got. Holding the puppet, he manages to break it with just one hand. With only one hand, he completely shatters it, and black energy starts to seep out from within. Seeing this, they question if he is really human, wonder what they should do since he seems so strong. At this moment, that arrogant guy begins to laugh loudly, saying that he almost fooled them, but that these aren't level 1 mechanical puppets, they are defective puppets. He says they are probably as strong as training dummies and that this guy isn't even a rank 1 martial artist, he just got lucky to make it here. Everyone doubts him, so he says that explaining things to idiots like them is a waste of breath. Walking up to the puppet, he says that if they don't believe him, he can prove it. That he jumps towards the robot, kicking it with all of his strength in the head. Relieved, the students say that this puppet is indeed fake. With open arms, the boy says he had already warned them. Behind him, the robot begins to spin. Before he can finish his sentence, it lands a punch square on Yu's face, launching him into the wall, which cracks upon impact. Drooling and in pain, he says that these are not even level 1 puppets. They are level 2. The puppet appears confused as the boy lies on the ground. He says that if these mechanical puppets are level 2, then what rank must this person be? Every mechanical puppet has a core, and you just need to strike the core lightly to defeat them, but there are many of them. The protagonist realizes that this is getting quite boring. He breaks them all single-handedly. Frustrated, the man asks what is going on as all the robot puppets just malfunctioned even though they were newly purchased. He wonders how a bunch of kids who have reached rank 1 could possibly defeat rank 2 puppets. The hero tells the gatekeeper to come over, and the man wonders since when he became the gatekeeper for the second challenge. Determined, the boy says he hopes he won't disappoint him. Next, he surpasses the cloud chasing technique and prepares to use the Star Impact X10 strike. Seeing him right in front of him, the man is completely terrified. It is then notified that 08 has been disqualified. A blonde woman is analyzing all the data. With a cup in hand, a man with green hair approaches and says that today is another day full of joy and satisfaction. Noticing the woman there, he calls her by name Shui King. She tells Major Xiao Shin King not to call her that and says that if he's so free, he can review the materials with her. The man agrees to Lieutenant Colonel Song Shui King's request and asks about the quality of the students in the camp this year. Seriously, she says that no matter how hard she tries, only 08 meets their standard of expectations. The others are all professional martial artists with weakened talents. The man then says that these 5 seem quite average, all with strength-based talents, but these 3 have an agility style and a defense style. Additionally, there is the psychic style. The woman says that this psychic martial artist is the most impressive of them all. Her name is Lin Xia. She is 18 years and 8 months old, and her psychic powers awakened less than a year ago, nearly reaching rank 2. The man says that's excellent, and that she is the greatest genius, just like the woman in the past. The lieutenant colonel tells him to stop with that and mentions that she prioritized her in this year's training camp. Laughing, the man says the others aren't so bad either, but then he notices something. In complete shock, he questions what he's seeing, causing the woman to become curious as well. Meanwhile, in the training area, another robot puppet is defeated. This is Xia Lin, who wonders if that was the last one. Analyzing, she says she senses something very dangerous there, and that this skill belongs to someone at least rank 3, and that it must be some kind of supervisor for the evaluation or something like that. Entering the room, she sees several men looking nervous. Many are holding shields, while others launch attacks. She wonders what is happening as there are so many people on high alert, and what they are fighting against. She questions again if something is really happening here. Using her specific abilities, she realizes it's 2 people fighting, and she wonders why the opponent is human when the targets of the evaluation were supposed to be robots. The protagonist notices and questions who he is. In response, the man looks back at her, completely startling her. At that moment, the door quickly closes, and looking back, the guards seem curious. Trembling, the girl asks what that was as the feeling of fear overwhelmed her heart with terror. The major asks what the situation was there and where the responsible supervisor is. He explains that the surveillance cameras near the entrance were all destroyed, and they lost contact with the supervisor. The man demands information on everyone who passed through Passage 12 right now, and she says it's no longer necessary. A crater begins to form in the wall. Breaking through the wall, the protagonist emerges. Relieved, the men understand it's just a student. But suddenly, a murderous aura emerges. He is walking while carrying an unconscious man. The lieutenant asks if he isn't a student from Qinyuan City and questions who he is. The boy drops the man on the ground and introduces himself as Liu Sheng from Bay City. Smiling, the major says he has guts. He remarks that in addition to destroying those mechanical puppets, he also defeated the supervising instructor, proving he is exceptional. With a slight snort, the boy says it's a misunderstanding. He thought it was part of the evaluation and the instructor was indeed strong, so he didn't hold back. Seeing this, the woman remains silent, observing. Then a powerful energy manifests from within her. It moves toward the protagonist. He simply stands still, saying nothing. She congratulates him for passing the entrance evaluation. She then asks him to rest as a staff member will guide him to the dormitories. She mentions that she watched the recording and that the mechanical puppets were nothing more than toys in his hands. The man states that his records show his vitality is only 15, and his combat power is 15,000, questioning if that's possible. This controversial figure says he evaluated him with psychic energy and felt nothing. He didn't react either. At this point, the major asks how she managed to handle that monster. The woman says she has decided, but their record statistics are not accurate. They will mark him as a high priority, just like Xia Lin, and it seems this year's election will be very interesting. Meanwhile, Lu wonders if that was a psychic energy surge and that the psychic power from the Dong structure is at least 5 times stronger than his. The man says it's time for them to go to the cafeteria and eat something, and he'll take him to the dormitory afterward. The hero thanks him and apologizes for the inconvenience. The man tells him he can eat as much as he wants for his first meal, and then he finds himself at the table, seeing many delicious dishes. He says everything is delicious and that he needs 10 more plates. As he eats a lot, a woman approaches asking if he is the student Liu Sheng. She introduces herself as Yang Yuan and says she is also a representative from Bay City. Then she asks if she can sit with him. He responds, saying the food is unlimited and that she can get more from the kitchen. Irritated, she thinks to herself that she's not here for the food. Thoughtfully, the hero mentions that according to what the president had said, Bay City hasn't had a representative for years, so he questions what is going on. She says he must have misunderstood, as the city currently sends representatives every year, but almost no one has passed the entrance evaluation for years. And even if they pass the evaluation, they are asked to leave because they don't accumulate enough points. Afterward, they just become stepping stones for others. Lu asks what these points she's talking about are. She explains that points are the currency here, and if he wants to use the resources of the training camp, he will need to spend points. For example, using equipment, consulting the cultivation sector, getting tonics, and even securing lodging all require points. And the fly meat he is eating is exclusive to military rations, but he can obtain it by spending points. So far, only 3 people in the entire training camp have earned points. Surprised, he asks if it's only 3 and how they managed to get them. She responds that points are only earned by passing tests and evaluations, and they gain points by passing the entrance exam. Kao Yang, a rank 2 martial artist awakened from Yanglan City, possesses the stone skin talent. Next is Meng Xin, a rank 2 martial artist awakened from Dongxiang City, and he possesses super speed. Lastly, there is someone even rarer than a martial artist with psychic abilities. It is said that her talent and skill surpassed this year's training, and that person is Xia Lin. She was walking down the hallway when suddenly she notices something. Looking to the side, she sees the protagonist eating an entire chicken. Seeing this, she is completely startled and shocked. She almost drops her food while in the background the protagonist asks if it's her. Yang asks if he knows her, and he responds that they met briefly. The woman mentions that there is also a fourth person, but the rumors about them are quite absurd. Besides being extremely strong, they supposedly managed to destroy almost all the mechanical puppets alone. On top of that, she says that person is a maniac, and they even beat the supervising instructor to the point that he had to be taken to the hospital. She says they are talking about a raging lunatic and laughs, saying she doesn't believe such a person exists. The boy mainly understands that the instructor was really tough and that everyone here is talented. Handing him the map guide, she tells him not to worry as she believes in him. She says that with his talent abilities and more training time, he could become as strong as they are. Wiping himself, the boy thanks her and someone behind him appears, asking if he is the student Lu Sheng. The person informs him that because he destroyed 18 mechanical puppets during the evaluation and beat the supervising instructor, who is still in the hospital, he needs to take him for interrogation now. Seeing this, the girl becomes frightened, realizing that the person she had been talking about was actually the protagonist. Everyone in the cafeteria also becomes very scared and shaken by the news. Standing up, the boy bangs the table and says he understands. Nervously, he mentions that he's no longer hungry and asks if he can take another portion to go. The man looks serious but says it's fine. Lu apologizes to her and says he has to go. A few minutes later, he leaves the cafeteria. Everyone is in shock, questioning if the rumors were actually true and if such a monster really exists. The girl begins to feel a mix of emotions, ranging from fury to embarrassment, due to everything she just witnessed. Sometime later, at the command center, the colonel tells Lu Sheng that he is truly an exceptional student, having spent half of the annual budget so quickly. With crossed legs, she states that each mechanical puppet is worth tens of millions and that furthermore, none of them can be repaired, so she congratulates him. However, she mentions that after the discussion, they decided not to take any action against him since he was only doing what he was supposed to in his evaluation, so it wasn't his fault. Interrupting the discussion, the major arrives along with 3 others. He comments that it's perfect and that all those who passed their evaluation are here at this moment. He calls the protagonist's attention, who looks to the side and observes them. Sheng congratulates everyone for passing the entrance evaluation and says they did very well. He explains that in this training camp, the stronger they become, the more resources they will receive, and he will give them the points and rewards they deserve for this. As soon as they accumulate a certain number of points, they will be recorded on a points card, and he hands the cards to them. He explains that this is the gold points card the instructor mentioned before they came here, and it contains 100 points. Ru then becomes excited, saying that he's now in the lead. Lin is very happy to have received 100 points and thinks that's enough to secure individual training from the legendary high-level psychomentalism doctor. However, when she looks to the side, she notices something strange. People then ask why the hero's card is white. Holding it, the boy comments that he's never heard of this before and questions if it's an empty card. On the card are the usage rules, stating that the Monster Meat restaurant costs 5 points per meal, as well as details about training sessions with the regular instructor. After reviewing it, he concludes that, apparently, eating meat is the only useful thing about the card. The major intervenes and tells him to be grateful, as the card actually has 1,000 points. If it weren't for the instructor, he would be in debt for the damages he caused. Hearing this, everyone is shocked and stammers, realizing that the card indeed holds 1,000 points. In response, the man says he thought this camp was solely about participants' skills and didn't know there were special privileges. He faces the situation and says this is disappointing. The redhead wonders what kind of crazy connections they are dealing with, and Lim asks if they don't know what the boy did during the evaluation. Trembling, the man says they've heard rumors that he bribed the students and instructors. Tearing his shirt, he says that the instructors and supervisors are all at least rank 3 martial artists, and only a rank 4 martial artist would be capable of defeating them. In response, the boy just watches silently. The man continues, stating that the camp's ethics dictate that the stronger individuals will receive more resources, so he demands that he prove his worth right now. Frightened, the major tries to get everyone's attention. However, the lieutenant colonel stops him from advancing. Sighing, Lu asks if he's sure about this. Very irritated, the man tells him to come at him and wants to see if he can get past his stone skin. Approaching, the boy prepares to flick his finger. The flick is so strong that it sends the man flying, dealing a double impact as he crashes. With just one flick, not only is he launched away, but he also breaks through the wall, hitting the ground hard. In his mind, the boy thinks that he asked for it, so they can't make him pay for it. The man ends up unconscious in the hole he created in the wall. Everyone is completely stunned. The major then looks around and begins to hum. At that moment, the hero asks if he can leave now. However, the major calls his attention. He asks if he already knows his plans for the training, and if he's already used his points, he can continue instructing. He thanks him but says he has more important things to do right now. Interested, the major questions what could be more important than receiving private training from the head instructor. Everyone stares at him nervously. At that moment, the protagonist stops and starts to respond. He explains that right now he's going to sleep. His response leaves his future colleagues in shock. In reaction, the man starts laughing loudly. Some time later, they carry out the injured student. With arms crossed, the major comments that he actually went to sleep. Meanwhile, the woman questions what he's doing as there are no resources in the dormitory. She explains that he is like a high-level whetstone. He can stimulate the growth of others. At this moment, she asks the man if he still remembers their time. He responds affirmatively, saying that just thinking about it makes his chest burn. At that time, this man was the strongest in the training camp and placed everyone under his feet. He earned the title of king. Continuing, the woman says that people with physical-type talents have a huge advantage over others. They can easily achieve combat power above several thousand and even defeat opponents ranked higher than themselves. However, skills like speed, observational ability, judgment, tactical experience, and strategies are equally important. One skill alone is not enough. In the process of growth and gaining experience, those who rely solely on the power granted by physical-type talents will eventually disappear. Thus, this might also be the future of Lu Shen. Meanwhile, he is defending himself from a zombie attack. Quickly, he prepares to strike again. However, Lu Sheng manages to intercept the blow, grabbing the opponent's arm. With his right hand, he holds a sharp object. Then he strikes the ground with it. It creates a huge impact on the ground. Taking advantage of this moment of imbalance, he lands a finishing blow on his opponent. Exhausted, he remarks that the opponent was a rank 6 martial artist when alive, the same level as the president of the Martial Arts Association. He thinks that, compared to enhancing his vitality, these are the true treasures to gain in the landscape of dreams. Footwork, fist techniques, palm techniques, leg techniques, spear techniques, and sword techniques. Human strength is limited. It is impossible for anyone to be talented in everything. However, he stands on the shoulders of countless people without flaws or blind spots. This is certainly his path in martial arts, complete martial arts. He also uses physical energy, thinking that if it weren't for this, he wouldn't have been able to withstand a single attack from that zombie. This physical type energy is the most basic, so he will have to improve his physical energy training. Sometime later, he is standing looking at himself. He thinks about focusing inwardly without any external distractions, enveloping his subconscious to refine his mind. His hand then reaches out to his giant version. As a result, a purple glow emanates from his head. At that moment, the hero realizes something. He is quickly pulled down as if into a vacuum. Then he wakes up fully conscious, emanating immense power, to the point of shattering all the glass near his body. He feels exhausted but remarks that he advanced again. He says it's been a while since he checked his biography and wonders what changes he has now. He then calls upon her to show his biography. She complies and displays the biography for the hero. Excited, he sees that he is about to become a rank 7 martial master, and that he has mastered the ancient Teklos, granting him power akin to that of a feudal lord. He understands that now that he has become a martial master, his evaluation and access permissions must have also increased. He then requests advanced techniques for refining the stellar body and natural breathing techniques. She complies with his request, showing him all the skills and techniques he asked for. Analyzing, he notices that with level 3 access permission, he can view higher level techniques, but something catches his attention. He brings his hand close to the scroll. This is the Divine Illumination of the Hell King, a rank 11 power from the World Martial Alliance. He realizes it is a complete martial technique. His eyes widen in surprise. He thinks this is incredible and mentions that he didn't expect it not to be in the combatant skill selection. This is an art designed specifically for psychic mentalists. It includes techniques on how to use psychic energy, battle tips, and most importantly, something unique. This art is completely different from other psychic arts. The essence of the Divine Illumination of the Hell King is to use psychic energy to create another body within the martial artist. In other words, is his second self, and the clone is so intricate that it duplicates the martial artist's muscles, cells, and even genes. All of this for a single purpose, to strengthen himself in all areas without leaving a single opening. The first level of the Divine Illumination of the Hell King is to use psychic energy to strengthen his organs. This way, he can amplify his vitality, which is exactly what he needs now. However, while he already has ways to amplify his combat power, his basic vitality remains unchanged. His vitality has always been the thing that most hinders his progress, and if he can overcome this obstacle, he can enhance all his stats. He thinks that people have underestimated the martial knowledge accumulated over 10,000 years, and that in this era, such knowledge can hardly be conceived, let alone created. Looking carefully, he recognizes the name Annie Fink, an exceptional talent, 1 in a million. He believes that Annie Fink is likely in existence above all, even among the powerful at rank 11. However, despite people possessing talent far above average, the destruction of human civilization could not be prevented. At this moment, he understands that there is still much to do and that the path ahead is still vast, and that every minute and every second, he needs to give his best to become even stronger. After that, a month passes. In the trading camp inside the psychic room, Lin Texia is undergoing some kind of training with her powers. She stands on a puzzle-like mat. At this moment, some yellow objects move toward her. Using all her psychic powers, she manages to slice through them all, without moving a single muscle. Each beam of her power carries a sort of white metal weapon. In the background, someone comments that it wasn't bad at all, and that she is progressing very quickly. They also point out a room stating that she can now control 3 stars with ease, and once she can control 6 effortlessly. They will signify that she has entered the realm of a level 1 mentalist. The girl bows, thanking them and saying it's all thanks to her tutor. The tutor responds that it is due to her talent and effort. However, Falk noticed something. It seems there is a significant weakness in her mental fortitude. The girl becomes nervous as the woman continues, asking if someone has left her with some kind of mental trauma before. The image of the protagonist quickly flashes in her mind. She responds affirmatively and asks the head tutor if there is any way to resolve it. The woman then says it is very simple. She explains that she must find the person who caused her trauma and defeat or kill them. That way her trauma will naturally disappear. In complete shock, the girl really didn't expect that answer. Confused, Song mentions that she is in the midst of rapid growth in terms of skills and that it shouldn't be difficult for her. Lin knows that the guy being mentioned has wasted all his time sleeping up until now and wonders if his skills have stagnated during this period. Because of this, she thinks she might have a chance. Leaning against the wall, the major asks her if she's done and how it went. The woman says she is talented, but her character is a bit weak. Continuing, she mentions that they have taught them what they needed to learn, and with only 1 to 2 months remaining, it will soon be over. She then asks about the protagonist, and he says that every time the team checks on him, they find him just sleeping, deeming him a lost cause. The man recalls that during the lecture, he said if a student wanted, they could sleep all day and no one would care. His companion remarks that he shouldn't have said that. At this point, the major asks if they still plan to use him as a whetstone, and Ed Abdullah responds that he's not even worthy of being used as a stepping stone. As he walks away, he says to leave him alone. Otherwise, Seelin might tear him to pieces during a camp evaluation, and the man says he's not afraid of either of them. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Yang is tired as she sweeps something. A colleague asks if she's not done yet and offers to help her. She comments that she envies those who earn 100 points as it's enough to cover their expenses for 2 months. Yang says that people like them have to save and endure hunger just to survive. Changing the subject, the woman asks what that Lu Sheng from her city has been up to all this time. Nervously, the girl responds that she doesn't know. The girl continues, saying that the guy made a big impact when they arrived, but in the end, everything ended for him the next day. She mentions that he's been locked in his room all this time, wondering if he's scared or something. In her mind, the girl thinks that Lu Sheng isn't like that. Turning around, she tells the girl to rest and that she can handle the rest. Suddenly, they hear a call, saying that it looks like Ko Young is about to face quadruple gravity force. Hearing this, the girl thinks about how she almost fainted after spending only 20 minutes in a double gravity chamber. Taking her hand, her friend suggests they go check it out. Nervously, the girl thinks about Lu Sheng and what he must be doing now. The protagonist is training elsewhere. That muscular man from before is training under triple gravity force. One of them comments that it's been 4 minutes and that he managed 80 more seconds than the last time, pressing the button to end the test. Everyone applauds Ko Young, saying he really pushed himself and spent 4 minutes under triple gravity force. Sighing, the man says he did well. Hearing everyone's applause, he wonders how they would react if he increased it to quadruple gravity force. Approaching the man, someone comments that soon he'll be able to handle quadruple gravity force and thus become a rank 3 martial artist. The oblivious one rubs his head as he feels a dull ache and asks how Lu Sheng is doing. The man responds that he's still the same, and every time someone checks his room, they find him just sleeping on the bed. Young thinks that in the past he had no chance against him. But now, no matter how slow the turtle is, it can still catch up to the sleepyhead, especially since he spent over a month just sleeping. It ended up being a waste of those 1,000 points, so perhaps this is his chance. Speaking of the person in question, he suddenly appears in the training room. He asks if this is the gravity training room and says it looks fun. Young greets the sleepyhead and asks if he finally decided to come to the gravity training room after sleeping for over a month. Ignoring the boy, he only thinks that he didn't expect to spend so much on food. Pressing a button, he tells him to start slowly as there are only 3 hours left. He looks back and questions if it's really been over a month and that now he can find out how strong he's become. The man then asks if he won't warm up first. Upon entering, he sets the gravity force to level 2. Smiling, Young comments that gravity force is no joke, and if he doesn't do some kind of warm-up before using it, the external pressure can immobilize him and destroy his organs. He comments that either Lu Sheng doesn't know this or he's too arrogant. Everyone is watching and they say the gravity system must have already activated and wonder why he hasn't noticed yet. At that moment, Lu Sheng throws a punch. While everyone observes, one of the men starts to tremble. Others approach, asking if that really is Lu Sheng. The boy is demonstrating incredible mobility. They question how Lu Sheng can move so fluidly, even under this gravitational force. Excited, the boy says this is quite innovative. He then decides to press another button. Seeing this, the man wonders if he is going to stop because he can't handle it anymore. But the boy decides to press the button anyway. It makes an irritating beeping sound, which annoys everyone. They wonder what's happening. In fact, he has increased it to quadruple gravity force. Focusing, he thinks about how this feels like being under an even greater gravitational force. He then slaps the ground with his hand. This leaves everyone surprised and shocked. Sweating, the man can't understand what's going on. Lynn approaches the area saying she's exhausted and that the instructor was really annoying. When she looks to the side, she notices something strange. She wonders why so many people are gathered there. Mouths open, people are stunned and dazed by what they are witnessing. Curious, the girl approaches and asks what they are looking at. But when she looks through the glass, she sees something very strange. Lu Sheng, without any difficulty, is doing a handstand using only 2 fingers. Pointing at the glass, she asks if that frog really is Lu Sheng. Young is in shock, questioning why he is so strong. She wonders if he shouldn't have been sleeping all this time. At the same time, the boy thinks that the quintuple gravity force is fun, but it's probably time now. He stops his handstand and goes to press the button. He ends up increasing it to quintuple gravity, which leaves everyone in shock. He then uses the natural breathing technique, earth breathing mode. One of the observers remarks if they're really seeing this, and another asks what's going on. The arrogant one also arrives at the scene, asking if this is real. Young also arrives, saying it can't be, and it's really that kid. Pressing up against the glass, Young still doesn't understand how this can be happening now. The quintuple gravity force has been activated. The boy understands that this force is perfect for his current training, allowing him to perform the movements of the stellar body enhancement technique. However, all of this is still far from enough, because he needs an even greater pressure, one that will push him to his limits. Wei asks if he's finally going to turn off the machine because he can no longer move. Another person says it's impressive that he lasted so long under quintuple gravity force. However, at that exact moment, the hero presses the button again, leaving everyone in shock once more. Meanwhile, in the command room, Caps Baigsa comments that there were 2 others today and several students have already quit the training camp. The major remarks that they are all spoiled and pampered, and after going through so many difficulties here, it's no surprise they don't want to stay any longer. It's a matter of whether they can endure a bit of hardship before facing monsters in the future. In response, the man says their level is very good and around 80% of them should make it to the end. At this point, he asks to take a look at the gravity room and studio movement because people are pushing to break new records. However, he notices that someone has just broken the record in the gravity room. Song mentions that Cao Yang was about to reach quadruple gravity force. However, the major says that someone did break the record, but it wasn't him. The one who broke the record was, in fact, Lu Sheng under octuple gravity force. Upon hearing this, the woman ends up breaking the glass she's holding. Standing up, she questions if he's really talking about Lu Sheng. The major asks what rank he is, and the woman responds that she doesn't know. But she says they have finally found the person they were looking for. Meanwhile, in the gravity room, Cao Yang realizes that this gravitational force is still too much for his current level of vitality, and he is reaching his limit. Now he decides to try out the new technique. His heart begins to be enveloped by a mystical energy that flows throughout his body. Quickly, he gets up. Looking at Song, he realizes that he has only strengthened his heart, and his vitality has increased by about 10%. Because this is the power of the divine illumination of the Hell King. Clenching his fists, he becomes very excited. He states that now he's going to test his true limits. Outside, in disbelief, they say he's already facing octuple gravity force and that he couldn't possibly be thinking of increasing it further. Pressed against the glass, Yang doesn't understand what's happening and remarks that they're outside the gravity force, but the pressure is still immense. Quickly, everyone begins to fall to their knees. Even Yang himself falls to the ground, frustrated, asking what Lu Sheng is doing. The gravity force increases to decuple. Yang ends up collapsing onto the floor, cracking the ground as he lands. He says it's incredibly intense and every movement of his body emits a stressful scream. He's using all of his energy just to stay conscious, but he can't move an inch. He admits that this gravitational force is far beyond what he can withstand, yet this is exactly what he desires. He wonders what kind of person is needed to change the future and reverse this fate. Would it be someone who has mastered high-level martial arts, someone with talent, or perhaps someone with unlimited resources? The answer is someone who is capable of surpassing all their own limits. Within this gravitational force, Lu Sheng stands firm while outside, everyone remains on their knees. With great difficulty, Yang opens his eyes, observing. The girl realizes that Lu Sheng has returned. After some time, he begins to exit the room. He appears slightly tired as everyone watches him. As he walks in his direction, someone calls out, handing him a towel. It's a short-haired girl who looks a little nervous. Taking the towel, the boy thanks her. As he wipes his face, he thinks that if everything had ended so quickly, he wouldn't have invested 3 hours of points, and it would have been a waste. Then he notices that there is a reward for setting a new record. The system notifies him that he received 1 reward point for setting a new record, bringing his total points to 4,335. Everyone is in shock when they realize that his points are in the thousands, while the points of ordinary people don't even come close, even if added together. In his mind, he wonders if 4,000 is enough to satisfy him. Everyone begins to step aside, making way for the hero to pass through without obstruction. At this moment, one of the boys gets excited and another asks where he's going. Observing, Yang understands that he has a commanding presence and is ahead of everyone. Watching this scene is like observing a fierce tiger advancing with a distant September chasing behind. Her friend comments that he has a talent for physical strength and broke the record, questioning if he's at the age of a rank 4. Widening her eyes, the girl realizes he's heading to the movement and footwork technique studio. Meanwhile, Rav is training in a rune, dodging lasers. He has completed the level 2 tactic training with a 97% success rate. This achievement has allowed him to surpass 52% of the students in terms of movement skill. He understands that his results are constantly updated on the main martial alliance board and that he has already surpassed more than half of the people worldwide. He reflects that humans are not all equal and that the gap between them and others is now beyond any measure, and that even by merely observing his training, these people have gained extraordinary benefits. Opening the door, he stands with open arms, expecting acceptance from the others. However, he notices that they are looking at another room and questions what's happening. Even the structure and its instructors are present there. Running to the spot, he asks why everyone is looking over there, and someone says it's because of Lu Sheng. The redhead asks if they're talking about lazy Lu Sheng and questions if he really thinks he's going to break his record. Looking back, the boy feels confused, wondering who this redhead is. But then both look forward, stunned. They realize he's going to test himself with all the laser launchers activated at maximum power. Observing the protagonist, they understand that all he needs to do is avoid the laser beams. Focused, he mentions that it's impossible to predict where the laser will come from. That's one of the challenges of this training. However, with his vision, this is nothing for him. Suddenly, numerous laser beams begin to appear, and the protagonist starts dodging them one by one with ease. Seeing this, the redhead questions if this is even possible, and another comments that there are thousands of lasers in the training studio, and it's impossible to predict where they'll hit. Grabbing him by the shirt, he asks if this is really the boy's first time in the movement studio, and the other responds that it is, and that before this he was already in a G-Force training and broke a historical record there. Falling to his knees, he asks if the boy's talent wasn't of the physical type and that he didn't spend the whole month sleeping. Very sad, he understands that this is the huge difference between their powers. The lieutenant also observes, wondering if it is his first time in the movement studio. But she understands that even if he had gone hundreds of times, it wouldn't be easy to reach that kind of level. The analysis of the environment of his movements instead of being reactive is as if they were predictions. To demonstrate this, the protagonist turns his head as if to predict that the laser beam would hit that specific point. With eyes wide open, the lieutenant observes, questioning how he is able to do this. Even with multiple lasers in sequence, the protagonist manages to dodge all of them easily. Seeing this, the woman begins to activate some kind of magic. The major questions what she is doing, and she responds with nothing. Analyzing, he thinks it's strange that the last time she tested, there was no psychic energy in him, and he asks why she felt the need to test again. In the level 2 movement studio, his occlusion tactic is at 162%. The boy thinks this training program is really good because he feels that his movements are getting faster. Soon, a notification appears that he has completed level 2 of the movement studio. All the men watch him and say that it looks like the level 2 training was very easy for Shang. The major also comments that it seemed very easy for Shang, and that he has a very relaxed appearance. With her arms crossed, the woman comments that she would like to see how far he could go. At this moment, level 3 training begins in the movement studio. Several balls start being thrown. The amount is immeasurable, and they all head toward the hero. Wetting his hands, the redhead wonders if this is how level 3 is and that it seems very difficult. Quickly, the hero starts dodging them one by one, while the cannons begin to prepare to launch more lasers. The boy stands in the center of the room preparing to dodge, saying that this time is starting to get difficult because the lasers are positioned in a way that prevents him from dodging, and now he will really push himself. Quickly, the lasers are launched in his direction, forming a huge explosion. However, the boy manages to dodge without much difficulty. Curious, the major says that this interior training stage was just discovered by him, and that even among the veterans of rank 4 and 5, only a few managed to reach this stage. She responds that she reached it at 25 years old, and for her, it is different because the Martia Marcello is about speed, and the other says she was born for it, but that boy is only 18. The system shows that he was in the level 3 movement studio with a 15% completion rate. His eyes widen as he sees how close the lasers are. Then he understands that just relying on his psychic sense is not enough. Observing, the man says he doesn't look as relaxed anymore. Suddenly, many lasers appear in front of him. Nervous, the boy says switch. Quickly, he runs using the wind-breathing technique. The sir manages to dodge all the lasers with great speed. His completion rate is already reaching 62%. The audience, watching carefully, wonders where Liu Shang is because he disappeared. Now the completion rate is already at 81%. One of them comments that that guy is so fast that they can't even see him with the naked eye, and that's why it looks like he disappeared. After some time, the lasers are deactivated, because the completion rate for level 3 has just reached 100% fully completed. As he leaves, the major says a new generation has arrived and that he really showed everything today, being the first to withstand G-Force 10 times and now level 3. However, the woman tells him not to leave because it seems the boy will continue, so he moves on to level 4. Perplexed, the man says that he just started entering level 4 and asks if he's really trying to go through all this in just one day. The woman then also watches in silence. Inside the movement studio, the hero begins to set things up. Some kind of device starts shaking near his foot. another one appears in front of him, starting to produce some type of laser. At this moment, two types of electromagnetic fields begin to emerge, one red and the other blue. Looking up, the hero sees several lasers, one close to the other. One of the people questions what that is and if it's possible to dodge all of that. Even Rufik, who had been arrogant, is now in shock. However, he has already reached a 30% completion rate at level 4. Watching, the Major says that now that he's past this stage, it will see how Lu Sheng handles it. Observing everything, he understands that he is almost at the limit of what he can do with the speed enhancement of the wind expression. Facing all of this, he thinks of a plan. Determined, he uses the Hell King's divine illumination. With his body burning in green flames, he gets ready, standing with both arms extended while he waits. The feeling he experiences is as if time had stopped, and the correct term for this would be temporal sense. Quickly, he manages to dodge and understand that this transformation of someone's psychic energy means that he is now officially a rank 3 psychic mentalist. Attentively observing this, he is in complete shock. Then the entire wall in front of him begins to crack. After breaking it completely, she appears, saying that he is indeed a psychic mentalist, and they call him Lu Sheng. A great purple energy starts to emerge from within the lieutenant. Her colleague, questioning what she is doing, calls her crazy. Looking ahead and focused, she says that she wants to test in one more time. Then, she uses her phasing ability. Meanwhile, the hero is dodging each laser. Looking to the side, he notices this type of energy approaching. As it gets close to his face, the boy just smiles. Then he prepares to defend himself, using some kind of strike in her direction, completely annihilating the Colonel's ability. Seeing this, she's incredulous, feeling some kind of pain in her chest. Nervous, she comments that he is a psychic mentalist, but that his power is not lesser than hers. Smiling, the boy understands that he can look but cannot touch, admitting as he reaches his limit that he didn't expect to activate the temporal sense for the first time, and that this will drain so much psychic energy. He understands that he is halfway through level 4, inclusion of the effect of the Hell King's divine illumination, and this is as far as his vitality can go for now. At this moment, he just lets himself be hit. A notification appears indicating that his training has ended, that he completed 56% of his level 4 training, surpassing 97% of martial arts in terms of skill and movement. Seeing the result, everyone is surprised, because he is just a student, and based on movement, Lu Sheng is above more than 1 billion people. Crying, the redhead says he only surpassed 52%, so he is 45% ahead of him. Looking at this number, Lu Sheng understands that 3% of people are still below them, amounting to around 10 million, and that still being quite weak, he needs to train more soon. Song congratulates him, saying that he broke the G-Force training record, and also set a new record in movement dirt. He asks if it's in combat engineering or the psychic force training room. Responding, the boy says it's neither, because now it's time to eat and he's heading to the cafeteria. This response leaves her speechless and makes the Major laugh a lot. After some time, they call him and he goes to the command room. The man explains that he called the boy for a small evaluation and that there are a few things they would like to discuss. The woman explains that the entire dormitory is equipped with this type of blood collection needle for vitality assessment. Then she asks if he tested his vitality during this time. Responding, he says he didn't test it because he couldn't pierce his skin with the dormitory needle. With arms crossed, the Major says it definitely happened with Team 3, and that without this level of physical extension, it would be impossible to break the G-Force record. At this moment, the woman starts taking something out of her clothes, showing a collection needle used on ranked artists, which should be good enough for him. Taking his hand, she prepares. Then she pierces his fingers with the collection needle. His vitality quickly appears, showing 24.65. Nervous, the man says it's been almost a decade since he saw such a young rank 3, and he comments that they will also check his combat power. Focused, the protagonist thinks that since he's done this, he will give his all to see how far he can go. So he decides to use the Fire Inspiration, Perfect Fist technique, and Cell Impact 8 times, hitting the dummy with his maximum strength. Soon he reaches a combat power of 100,217,000. In shock, he wonders how a rank 3 martial artist managed to reach the combat power of a rank 5, and that's enough. This boy is a complete monster. The man says that he has already graduated and that he can do whatever he wants from now on, and that he will issue a report for the Martial Association to update his ranking. With the woman in complete distress, I had to expect that there would still be one more test. She explains that this is an energy crystal, a crystal discovered in the country of Lion over 100 years ago, and that after that, it was used to evaluate the psychic power of mentalists. All he needs to do is touch it with his own hands and pour his psychic energy into it. With her hands on it, it's visible that her power is 143.24, and the Major is shocked that hers is also increased. She says that she doesn't sit around like him all day for nothing. The man then responds, saying that she can insult him, but she cannot insult his lifestyle. A little later, the protagonist places his hand on the crystal. The man says that her saying he should have half of her power is fine, but saying that he's not weaker than her, he couldn't believe it for a second. But the woman tells him to shut up. Focused, he begins to pour all his psychic energy into the device. A lot of energy begins to emanate from the crystal, making the instructor ask how this is possible. His mental strength is 113.56. Observing this, the woman realizes that there is a mental purity of 20.3, being more than double that mental strength, and for a psychic, each point of mental purity is extremely difficult to acquire, because it's like folding and compressing a common towel repeatedly until, from doing so, the towel becomes compressed to the size of a coin. She is in shock because he is only 18 years old with an absurd level of skill, and the term change is not enough to describe him. The Major, also in shock, says that this is incredible and so impressive that it borders on the divine. Hearing this, the woman punches him with the tube in his face. Approaching the boy, she asks if he already has a master, and if he has studied mental cultivation techniques before. Lu Sheng responds, saying he already has a master, and that his master taught him a unique method of cultivating mental energy, in addition to teaching other things as well. Sighing, she says she understands, as she had already suspected, and that it's obvious he already had a master. Song comments that even with a master, this shows how powerful and talented he is, and asks if his talent awakening was not too long ago, and the boy responds that it was less than 3 months ago. This response leaves the two stunned, unable to comprehend. Nervously, she comments that he reaches the level of mental energy and has such high purity, and that it would be difficult to find someone like him in several decades. Not understanding, the boy asks if mental masters also have associations. She explains that the system of mental masters is completely different due to the rarity of mental talent awakenings, and that even in a country with a large population, less than 1% have the talents of a mental master. She says that perhaps his master didn't tell him to avoid affecting his training, since the more knowledge one has, the more distractions arise, and the purity of his mental energy could end up diminishing. However, since he is a genius, she would like him to join the association, and they could provide him with more resources for his training, showing her insignia. Responding, the boy says that he has never seen his master's appearance, and that he always receives his master's instruction in a very mysterious way. The girl says that his master must be an extraordinary person and thinks that when such a powerful talent is discovered, people want to protect him, and that it's surprising that his master allows him to live independently and only someone with a very high level of perceptive knowledge could act that way. In his mind, the hero thinks that it's very difficult to explain this, so he used that excuse. But it would be very cool to openly say that his master came from the future. Being 10,000 years in the future and possessing a level 11 power, his name is Duan Wushing. Smiling, the man intervenes, saying that he would love to continue the conversation, but he came to discuss a few matters with him. He then hands him a card with 5 million and says that the training camp isn't over, but it seems that he is the #1 student and gives him his additional prize. The girl comments that he shouldn't worry, as there's no way to be dissatisfied because this is the most they can offer. The Major laughs, saying that he is famous in the camp for being a big eater, and that if you add up all the money he spends on food, it will definitely reach 7 or 8 million. In shock, the boy realizes that those meals are very expensive and asks if he will never be able to eat them again. Song comments that even though that amount of money is small, it's enough to demonstrate the military district's goodwill, and this is the second thing on the list. Examining the card, he asks if this is a form of recruitment. Smiling, the Major replies that he is smart, and that it can be understood that way indeed. However, Song warns him that he must understand that being a martial prodigy like him, he will inevitably go to the battlefield to fight enemies and monsters, because a normal martial warrior cannot become a holy dragon martial warrior while staying in the safe zone. The Major explains that the government and the Martial Alliance offer support and privileges to martial practitioners, but it's not free, and soon the time will come. Laughing, he tells him to consider himself the #1 in the Eastern Military District, and that he should know that in their region, he has an advantage because their female soldiers are the most beautiful in the country. He explains that these are beautiful women with fine features. Before he can finish, the woman throws something at his head. After pushing him away, she explains that he will represent the province's genius training camp and participate in the selection of enlightened generals in the Eastern Province. This information leaves the boy quite startled. She explains that in all Eastern provinces, the training camp concludes with the idea of selecting true geniuses among them who have the potential to become stars. She then asks if he knows what it means to become a star in this context, and the boy responds that he does. It's the title of Grand Master. Returning, the man says that being a star means representing the future Grand Masters, the stars of preparation, and that there is only one person like this in the entire Eastern region each year. He concludes by saying that this person is sanctioned among all prodigies, so Shen quickly accepts. He thinks that since they live in this era, certain things are inevitable, and that they are already trying to change the entire human race's stimulus on their own, so he will face difficulties. He says that both General Dong and he fully trust his abilities, and that if even he cannot succeed, it's hard to imagine who else could in this generation. He explains that the rewards for this competition are granted directly by the Eastern Military District and are much more generous than what they can offer. The woman explains that there are still several months until the star selection, and that it will officially start once all the equipment in all the provinces is completed. The man explains that with the boy's ability, it doesn't matter if he participates in the exam or not, he can freely choose any martial university in the entire region. Hearing this, the boy remains silent. As he leaves, he says he will stay for a while longer, since he has nothing else and is already going. And then the man laughs, saying that he bets the boy stay for the food. Still, the woman says she never thought she would feel envious of someone for their talent, but the man says he is different from them, that he is destined not to be an ordinary mortal. He is certain that Lu Sheng will one day bring about important and transcendent changes in this era he lives in. Sometime later in Bay City, at the Martial Association. Inside the building, the protagonist thinks that it's been some time since he last visited this place. However, someone suddenly yells, catching the boy's attention. As she shouts, calling Xiao an old man, she ends up announcing that Lu Sheng has finally arrived. Pointing toward the room, the boy asks what's going on. Nervous, she opens the door and tells him to just ignore it and go in. She then informs the president that Lu Sheng is here. One of the men stands up to welcome him. Asking if this is the city the president mentioned, he says it's not bad and that he really is young and promising. Smiling, he tells Xiao not to be so upset because not everyone can become ordinary with a precious goal. The man is completely hunched over. The one in the hat says that countless people are weaker than his ceiling and that one more or less Lu Sheng in the city won't make any difference. Very irritated, the man thinks he is too arrogant. Completely furious, he questions why he is here if the training camp is ongoing and demands a good explanation. With an envelope in hand, he explains that the head instructor of the training camp asked him to deliver this and that it requires his approval. The man asks if she wants this document to be reviewed and approved by the president of such a small city as Bay. He questions if he committed some kind of fraud at the training camp and now wants the person who recommended him to take responsibility for his mistake. Holding the envelope, President Xiao becomes very irritated. In anger, he ends up tearing the envelope in half. When he sees that the paper is a document containing the evaluation results for Lu Sheng, he is completely astonished. The man then tells Xiao not to let this boy fool him. Xiao then questions Lu Sheng about when he became a rank 3 martial artist. After some time, they speak via video conference with the lieutenant colonel, and he says it's a pleasure to meet her. The man is in shock and nervous, realizing that he is actually speaking with Chief Instructor Dong. Lingxia joins the video conference, recognizing her grandfather's voice, and asks where he is. Annoyed, the instructor scolds her, saying that she doesn't have much time to be distracted and that today's training will be multiplied by 10. Changing the subject, Xiao tells him to get straight to the point and that he has seen the document he asked Lu Sheng to deliver. Sang then comments for him to ensure that this will not delay the event that will take place in a month, because Lu Sheng will be the representative of the Dongning Province's Prodigy Training Camp in the Morning Star selection of the Eastern District. As the strongest student this year, there is no need for him to continue in the training camp. Some of the men are completely shocked after hearing all of this. The elderly man realizes that his granddaughter had called him earlier. Meanwhile, the instructor begins scolding his granddaughter, asking how she can withstand such low pressure. At that moment, the man understands that when she mentioned a monster, she was referring to Lu Sheng. Xiao, confused, says he will not delay her any longer. However, the woman says to wait because she needs to speak with Lu Sheng, and she mentions that she has obtained many materials from the psychic weapons he requested. Additionally, the formalist is handling the prices and will send them to him. She tells him to hurry for this evaluation, and once approved, he will have the right to access StarWeb to purchase the materials on his own. In complete shock, the president asks the boy if what he just said is true, and if he is going to undergo the evaluation to be approved as a psychic mentalist. Responding, Lu Sheng comments that he was evaluated as a psychic dope bearer at the training camp. Laughing, the man says he wasn't mistaken about him, that he truly is a genius from the city. Hearing all this, the elderly man starts going crazy, laughing and repeating the 270,000 of the psychic mentalist. At the same time, at the entrance of the Martial Association, the president asks if he would like someone to take him home, but the boy says it's not necessary. As he gets into the taxi, he reflects on how impressive it is that, in the world of martial arts, power can achieve anything. The taxi driver asks what his relationship with President Xiao is and comments that he seemed very friendly with the boy. Thoughtful, the boy realizes that even the driver can tell the president is in a good mood, and he replies that they are not related and that he met him today. Spotting a sign ahead, the driver quickly brakes abruptly, facing a giant sign that mimics a banner. Getting out of the car, the boy is shocked to realize it's the sign of the Hongchuan Martial Arts Academy. In front of the Hongchuan Martial Arts Academy, the man says he is here today specifically to challenge everyone in the academy. Pointing at the man, Nai says that he is the martial artist from Anki 4 and they even came to challenge the academy knowing her father is injured. Hurt, her father calls out to Lin Qiang, saying that his academy has benefited from recruiting new students for a year and asks what more he wants. Irritated, the man says that since he dares to display his sign, he needs to be prepared in case someone comes to break it at any moment. Standing up, he says that he is right. Since they raised the sign, it must have the ability to keep it standing. Channeling some energy into his fists, he says he established his legacy using only these fists when he came to the city. He asserts that he was able to hold his own back then and will be able to do so now. Seeing this scene, Nai calls out to her father, who says he's fine. The man comments about Lu Sheng, the 18-year-old martial artist from Anki 2, and asks how someone like him managed to have such a student. Intervening, Nai explains that Lu Sheng is not her father's student, just a member. Irritated, the man says he doesn't care about that. All he knows is that because of this Sheng's reputation, they stole more than half of his business from the martial arts academies. So since they had the audacity to mess with his business, they shouldn't blame him for being ruthless. Angrily, Nai says that the students left his academies and came to theirs of their own free will, and she can't apologize for that. Agreeing with the girl, the man says he knows that, and that's why he will destroy the academy today. Clenching his fists, he says that once it's destroyed, the students will have nowhere to go, so they can finally return to his academy. Hearing this mocking explanation, the girl becomes angry. Taking her stance, she says she will face him right now. Mocking her, the man says that apparently he will have to crush a beautiful little flower today. But her father says that she is no match for him and that Lin and Sword's skills are not those of a rank 4 martial artist. However, Nai insists that if the rank 3 martial artist fights him alone, she will defeat him by combining their strength. The bully then asks how long they will keep chatting and tells him to hurry up and face death because he doesn't want to come back here tomorrow. Focused, she warns that after defeating him, she'll make him parade through the streets carrying his own sign. Surrounded by a black and red energy, the man says this girl has a very sharp tongue. Rushing forward, he says they are irritating him. With a very sadistic smile, he approaches the girl. At that moment, her father steps in front, being used as some kind of human shield. Due to the impact, he is thrown far away. The bully declares that he really is trash, unable to withstand even a single punch. At that moment, they question how he managed to reach rank 5, and that the man has been hiding behind the cursed academy all this time. Then he asks if it's been a long time since he faced a prodigy like him. He then asks who will be next. The man says that if all the bully wants is for them to close the academy's doors, he will go to the Martial Association to do so. That way he will close the academy as the bully desires. Kneeling and crying, the girl calls for her father. Smiling in a completely manic way, the man says that he seems like a man of his word and that things are settled, so he's leaving. However, someone arrives, telling them to wait. Approaching, the protagonist asks that if the academy is closed where he is supposed to train since it's perfect for him. Surprised, man calls out for Lu Shen. Waving, the boy says it's been a long time. The bully approaches him, saying he talks too much and should stay quiet. The man then says that if he's worried about another place to train, he can train in his own academy. He comments that this academy is trash and that their master couldn't even withstand one of his punches. He then asks what they can offer. The hero then asks if he's talking about the Tenjin Academy for him to go to. Showing his hardened chest, he says that the Tenjin's secret technique is a restricted art that isn't taught easily, and that no one here would be able to break his defense. The old man just listens to all this in silence with his head down. Lu Sheng asks if he's willing to teach such an incredible technique. Smiling, the man replies that yes, as long as he enrolls in the academy and accepts him as his master. Curious, the boy asks how he intends to teach him. In his mind, the man doesn't understand why this boy asks so many questions. He was about to respond, but he quickly feels something very wrong happening in his body. His body starts to swell, causing his clothes to tear. Sweating profusely, he doesn't understand what's happening. Giving a thumbs up, the protagonist says it's impressive because it's very resilient. At that moment, he punches him with all of his strength in the chest, sending the man flying far away due to the impact and breaking the wall. He ends up passing through the entire concrete wall. Watching this deplorable scene, the hero asks if he wasn't going to teach and how he plans to do it now while on his knees. Alvarez is in complete shock because the bully ended up losing. His subordinates tell him to hurry up and not be impressed, as they need to help their master. Nai runs to her father to see how he is. At that moment, the hero extends his hand to her, asking if she's okay. Embarrassed, the girl responds that she is. The boy comments that they shouldn't close the academy because otherwise it will be difficult for him to find another one so close to his house. Grateful, the man explains that he won't close it, and if he ever needs anything, he just needs to call. Smiling, the hero says that he doesn't need anything because all of this happened because of him, and that he only helped this time, but next time they will have to protect it with their own power. After saying this, the hero begins to leave. The man remarks that he must be sick, being at least a rank 5 driver to be capable of defeating that bully. Nervous, the girl explains that 3 months ago, Shen was only at rank 2. Sometime later at the hero's house, his mother welcomes him, asking why he was so late. Replying, the boy says that he saw a group of people like those in a drama and a weak girl, so he gave them a little help. This leaves the woman in shock, asking if he got into a fight. She begins to ask if he's hurt, and the father intervenes, saying that her son's officially a martial artist and should be fine. He explains that being a martial artist means helping those in need and defending the weak, being a true man. The sister approaches, asking what was in the meat he sent to them, because it made their father improve significantly after eating it, and her vitality also increased to 1.1. Then she asks if he stole it from the training camp. Pulling her cheek, he questions who she thinks her brother is and says that she doesn't need to worry because he earned everything fair and square. With a big bowl of rice, she asks if the training was difficult and says that he shouldn't push himself too hard because the most important thing is for him to stay safe and sound. Laughing, the man says she really doesn't know anything because he feels that passion buried deep in his heart all the time, and that he will truly become an incredible person, and that for great things, even if they fail, they will always be there for him. Smiling, the boy says he knows this and understands that for these joyful days to continue, he needs to become stronger so that no one gets hurt. Sometime later in the protagonist's location, an enraged zombie appears near him but is quickly annihilated with a punch. Looking at his hand, he is impressed, saying that now he can defeat a rank 6 martial artist zombie with a single strike. Looking up, he realizes that this must be the operational center of the base, but he becomes nervous remembering the zombie with the overwhelming aura from before. He wonders if he can face it now, but for now, he decides to take a look. However, looking closely, he once again senses the presence of that zombie, which leaps from the base, heading toward him and breaking the ground with force. The boy barely manages to dodge, but then he recognizes who is in front of him. It's the zombie with the overwhelming aura from before. He realizes that not even a rank 6 martial artist could combat this monster and that it is at the level of a martial master. He understands that it has absorbed many battle remnants and is always driven by this destructive urge, but now he can quell these impulses using his crystal reserve technique. However, he doesn't want to lose the courage to face this foe. Somewhat apprehensive, he declares that they will fight now, charging at the monster using wind breathing. He delivers a kick with the stellar impact 6 times. But after delivering the blow, he notices something. The monster managed to block it with just the palm of its hand. Seeing this, he quickly retreats. He understands that even though he didn't give it his all, he used the 6th stellar impact along with the movement training buff and still it had no effect. Realizing this, the boy becomes extremely frustrated. So without thinking twice, he charges again using flame breathing with the stellar impact 10 times. The impact is so powerful that it destroys the ground beneath him. But he becomes nervous when he notices that nothing worked. The zombie managed to defend itself using some kind of magical shield. Facing this, he thinks that, as they say, all martial masters possess their own invisible force field, which is so strong that not even bullets can penetrate it. Looking closely, he realizes that this is indeed the force field of a martial master. Nervous, he wonders if the zombie won't go after him and if it has no intention of attacking, only defending. He sighs in relief, saying this isn't good at all, and that he won't be able to defeat it. Sitting on the ground, he realizes that while his attacks hit that layer, its power must be reduced to 99%. He then thanks God for this martial master zombie not seeing him as a worthy opponent, as it only defends passively without counterattacking. He finally understands the difference between rank 6 and 7, and the power level of each rank is extremely distinct. He realizes that he cannot cause any damage to it and wonders what he should do now. With a sharp gaze, he thinks there must be a way, and once he defeats it, he'll gain access to memories of a martial master, motivating him. Shortly after, he charges again, delivering several consecutive punches to its shield. Deeply frustrated with the situation, he throws a punch strong enough to push it far away. However, upon closer inspection, he notices it had no effect. But by doing this exercise, he understands that the force field isn't completely invincible and that it weakens slightly, even if it was almost insignificant. He realizes that if he can weaken it little by little, he might have a chance, but he'll likely need to attack millions of times to break through this shield. If it weren't for the fact that he's using his natural dispersion technique to recover, a martial artist like Dribble 3 would already be exhausted by now. He then wonders what he should do, retreat and return when he's stronger. Even though his psychic power has reached rank 3, one of the options would be a piece of cake. However, he quickly realizes that he still hasn't tried using a psychic trick. He understands that even though he hasn't learned any combat techniques, psychic mentalists always use psychic energy as support, and he almost forgot that he's a rank 3 psychic mentalist, and compared to his martial skill, his psychic power is even more lethal. In a few seconds, he focuses and manages to condense the power, but he understands that he still can't condense his psychic energy as a weapon. So he charges, thinking this should be enough. Using his maximum strength, he tries to use his condensed psychic energy directly on the force shield. He begins to feel some effect, thinking it worked, but it's still not enough. At that moment, he uses his momentum to leap high. Using his maximum psychic power, he condenses everything again. From above, he kicks his condensed power toward the force shield, and upon impact, it causes a crack. With rage in his eyes, he thinks that it's still not enough. He then starts condensing more power in the air. With intense anger, he hurls it with all his strength toward the shield. It's a series of condensed powers layered like multiple crystals. Little by little, they are causing the shield to crack. Exhausted, the protagonist realizes it's still not enough. So he decides to go for plan B. He uses his psychic energy and the flame expression of the stellar impact 10 times along with the perfected fist technique. Determined, he charges with everything for his final strike, hitting the crystal and unleashing a kind of magical lightning using his psychic powers. This enormous power begins to grow more and more, breaking through the force shield. Then the hero approaches the zombie. He says that the soul of the hero should never die. Striking its chest, he says he will inherit its will. In response, the zombie merely smiles. Then a dark energy begins to envelop its body, surprising Lu Sheng, who wasn't expecting this. At that moment, he starts seeing its memories. It begins with the memory of when he was announced as a martial master, and the situation was getting worse, even with the kingdom's high command nearby and the basics present every day. In one of these memories, his young daughter is crying, asking if he won't live with them. He responds that, as a martial master, her father would have to stay on the front line until his last breath. He faced a giant snake and understands that this is a rank 9 monster, and just seeing it from a distance sends shivers down his spine. One of the people notices that it's an Eastern malignant compass, and that Master Wang Ying's punch is simply incredible, being humanity's only hope. They are happy because the old man managed to defeat the monster and learn a new martial art from Master Wang Ying's attack. However, it shows the memory of him lying on the ground, wondering if this is the feeling they have before they die. He heard that the Martial Alliance initiated the Fire Sea Plan and that they concentrated all of humanity's efforts to create an unprecedented level 12 powerhouse. Wondering if there is still hope for humanity, he regrets that he won't be able to witness any of it. After seeing all the memories, the protagonist is in shock. Questioning if this was the life of that martial master, he realizes that the quantity of memories this time was better than before, and that was a magnificent life. This martial artist was called Shi Shengying, a practitioner of fist arts. His fist techniques, epiphanies, and combat experiences are all integrated into the protagonist at this moment. Thus, his martial arts books on fist techniques are advancing at an unprecedented pace. From the initial discernment stage to the advanced discernment stage, and now to the ultimate discernment stage. Analyzing his hand, he understands that he is now at a stage of deep control. And this is the fruit of what that master learned throughout his life. Wang He is the name most mentioned in his life aside from the names of his daughter and wife. He understands that the creator of the stellar body art is indeed Wang He, and that he was an incredible person in the year 10,000, nicknamed the Eastern Malignant, and that even this Master Yang 7 was his fan, and it seems the master once endured his attacks and had an epiphany. He then created a powerful martial art for himself, and the protagonist questions why he can't find this in his memories. He wonders if it is buried deep within his memories, seeing the unstoppable torrent of memories. Amid these memories, he notices something. It appears to be some kind of glowing orb. When he reaches out to it, his entire body is pulled in. Being transported into one of the memories, he wonders if this is the monster the master once faced. At this moment, he asks what is hidden in the darkness. From a distance, he sees a figure that may be the master. Facing away, Master Xtide just observes something. Suddenly, several solar rays burst out of him. The hero quickly closes his eyes, thinking that it's too bright. When he opens them, he is completely stunned. In ancient mythology, the cold celestial emperor, known as the Golden Crow, carries the responsibility of the sun's journey. Every golden crow represents his sun. Just as all the suns appear in the sky simultaneously, the rivers dried up and the land cracked open. Infinite light and heat incinerated everything, and no living being could survive under the 10 suns. This is the result of Master Xi's lifetime efforts and teachings. This is an unparalleled martial skill he intended to use to reach the rank of Martial Master 8. It is called the 10 Suns in the Same Sky, and now this ability is his. Sometime later at home, he is in his room, sitting on the bed, training. Looking at himself, he notices that his psychic energy seems to have undergone some kind of transformation. Deciding to test something, he tries to condense it, surprised to find that he actually managed to do so. He can feel that this energy isn't entirely different from before, but the difference in quality is like night and day. He realizes that if Xiaolin's psychic energy is like air, then Dong's and the lieutenant's is like an eagle. However, his energy is like a ball forged from pure steel, and even though it's the same in quality and hardness, it's much greater. Excited, he feels pleased to have improved this psychic energy. However, looking out the window, he sees a purple building trembling. In shock, he wonders how a mere touch using his psychic energy managed to lift heavy objects. He realizes that his ability to pick up and lift objects with psychic energy is now a dozen times stronger than before. He then understands that, in a way, he has fully entered the realm of extraordinary beings. He is certain that with just this psychic energy alone, he could bring a rank 3 or even a rank 4 martial artist to death. Additionally, he now has a force field around his body. Even though it's just a thin layer, he can strengthen it by using even more psychic energy. However, even if he pushes it to its limit, the thickness doesn't reach even 1% of that martial master Zhao Mi's shield. Sitting in his room, he thinks that having an equivalent force field is the beginning of becoming a martial master. Although this is just a seed, one day it will grow and become a great tree, and from it, he will evolve to become the true martial arts will of a martial master. Sometime later, he is by the vast sea and sky, sitting on a chair. He is using his phone. He's talking to someone, explaining where he is and that the training camp has ended. There are no more monster meat air meals, and as a result, he has to experiment with cultivating with tonics. Tired, the woman from the pharmaceutical lab arrives quickly. When she sees the boy sitting at the table, she realizes he's just a student. Confidently, she says this will be a piece of cake. Lu Sheng asks the woman to sit down. He mentions that he's heard the steak at this restaurant is very good. He asks if she minds having lunch while they talk. Responding politely, she says she doesn't mind at all and just wonders how she should begin. The boy excuses himself and orders the best steak they have, 40 medium portions. Shocked, the woman wonders if he's a pig and if he's really going to eat 40 portions of steak in one go. However, after doing the math, she realizes that each steak costs 1,280 and 40 portions would be 50,200. She then wonders if he's going to embarrass himself and ask her to pay the bill. Lu asks her if she wants anything. She begins to respond, but the boy quickly interrupts, saying he doesn't want anything and asks for the dishes to be served as quickly as possible because he's hungry. Hearing this, she thinks he's a pig and starts to speak. The boy lays out information about her, saying her name is Helinxio. She is 22 years old, originally from Xing'an Province, Guaguan City, Ba County. He then mentions that her great-grandmother initially started as an apprentice at the medicine shop. In one of the middle years of the martial calendar, she used her talent and exemplary alchemy skills to become a rank 5 alchemist. She then founded the Extinction Medicinal Hall. He comments that currently there are a total of 203 branches in more than 20 cities across Dongning Province, and that the Extinction Medicinal Hall was quite prestigious in its early days. However, there is something else. He mentions that, as management was not well handled later on, when it was her father's turn, the generation declined rapidly. Irritated, she comments that the boy is sharing information that can be easily found online and questions what he's trying to prove. At that moment, the 40 steaks he ordered arrive. As he eats, the boy says he also knows her mother's name and that she hasn't returned to Dongning Province in 20 years due to family issues and has never seen her daughter even once. He continues saying that this is the reason why the family business is failing in her hands, in addition to her outdated and poor business management mentality. He then explains that the most important reason is that her mother and the Shen family have been squeezing the Extinction Medicinal Hall all these years. Completely enraged, the woman stands up, asking what evidence he has for saying such things. The boy responds that whether it's true or not, all she needs to do is ask her father to find out. She understands that her mother left her father and her when she was 2 years old and never returned to visit them all these years, being completely heartless. She realizes that the decline of the family business truly began when her mother left and her father took over. At that time, stores were closing down almost daily, and this lasted for only a few months. And that even though her father is poor at management, things shouldn't have gone so bad. Continuing the conversation, the protagonist asks if every time her father agreed on a new project with a collaborative partner, he inexplicably failed. As he eats, he says he hopes she doesn't blame him for investigating the matter deeply. Frustrated, she responds that she will investigate on her own and that they should now discuss their collaboration. The boy says he will be responsible for providing medicinal prescriptions and necessary ingredients, while the medicinal hall will be in charge of production and sales. As for the profits, he says he wants 90%. In shock, she doesn't understand what he means by 90% and asks why he doesn't just say he wants it all. Smiling, the boy says he'd like to do that, but didn't think she'd agree. She says the most she can offer is 70% for everyone. However, the boy explains that the additional 20% he's asking for is essential, and 10% is to ensure long-term collaboration in the future. The other 10% is a bonus for helping take care of some bothersome issues. She then asks what he means, and he explains that the Shen family has been oppressing her capital for so many years. So the question is whether she doesn't want to do something about it, for example, to retaliate and reclaim everything that is rightfully hers. The girl becomes anxious when she senses some kind of energy near her, and he tells her to look closely, as she should already understand what it means. In shock, she realizes that he is a psychic mentalist. Being an 18-year-old martial artist, proficient in martial arts comparable in the city, and having the gift of a psychic mentalist. Even though she is not a martial artist, she fully understands the weight of these credentials. Regarding the gift, the boy mentions that she also brought it up, so she doesn't seem to think that the research into this medicinal prescription was done entirely on his own. The girl then asks if he is referring to the person behind it. The boy responds, saying she is very smart and that the additional 10% is for the power he possesses and the person behind him. He asks if there is any deal more profitable than this in the world. Thoughtful, the girl realizes that if everything Lu Sheng said is true, she will have to confront the Shen family sooner or later. Even if she has no complaints or desire for revenge after the last 20 years, it doesn't mean the other side will spare her. And the medicinal research she's collaborating on will be the best excuse for them to attack. She then agrees to the proposal of 90% of the profits. While thinking that his talent is incredible, his mind, cunning, and methods are all he has shown so far. Smiling, Lu Sheng says that the medicinal research for the muscle and blood-strengthening decoction is on this flash drive. Smiling, she says she hopes he can arrange what he promised and thinks she's found enough to see how far this person will go. The boy asks her to go and register a consultation patent for the alchemists. She says that soon he will need her alchemical laboratory, and as she leaves, she says it was a pleasure working with him. Tired, the woman thinks she could close the deal quickly, considering Lu Sheng is just a student. But in the end, it didn't seem like she was dealing with an 18-year-old student, but rather with a man of great importance and status. After all, he even addressed her as Miss He and then simply as you. The waitress approaches, asking if she can pay the bill. He mentions that he was the one who ate all of it, but then asks what the total is. Smiling, the waitress says that he ordered 90 items totaling 115,200, but if they round it, it's only 115,000. Extremely nervous, she questions why there are 90 items when he only ordered 40 portions. The waitress comments that he ate 40 portions there, and then ordered 50 more to go, asking if she'll be paying in cash or card. Trembling with anger and tears in her eyes, she hands over her card. The waitress thanks her for her preference. Sometime later, the protagonist arrives home, ringing the doorbell. When his mother opens the door, she is very surprised by the number of boxes and asks what all this is. Responding, the boy says that they are high-quality steaks, and that she doesn't need to cook dinner today, they'll be eating these. He also mentions that he didn't pay for any of it, but rather a very wealthy heiress offered everything, and she, in this case, has plenty of money. His mother says it's not right for him to do that again, as he lacks the motivation and it's not fair to take advantage of others' generosity. He says his teacher has come by several times and that he's a very kind teacher. The boy then realizes it's been a long time since he last attended school. Meanwhile, at Bay High School, teacher Jong is in his classroom. Someone knocks on the door, and he says they may come in. When the door opens, he sees that it's Shang and asks what brings him there. If it's not about a bonsai, the boy says it's been a long time. Handing it over, he says that since he accidentally destroyed his bonsai last time, he brought a new one. The man says the boy is very considerate and that although not much time has passed since he was last here, the aura he emanates now is completely different. After this brief chat, he invites the boy to come in and continue the conversation inside. He mentions that the school's development procedures will be completed soon and that after this meeting, he'll probably only see him on TV in the future. He then asks what his plans are for the future. The boy responds that he will participate in the Morning Star selection and then undergo the evaluation as a psychic mentalist at the Psychic Mentalist Association. The man is completely shocked to hear this, and the boy explains that his talent as a psychic mentalist was discovered during the training. Smiling, the teacher appears very proud. He says that's wonderful, that there's nothing more he can teach him, so he should go ahead and achieve everything he wants in this world. After the conversation, the boy says goodbye and leaves the room. In his mind, the teacher thinks he underestimated him. This boy isn't just the pride of the school and the city, but he will also be the pride of all humanity. Sometime later in class 2 of the 3rd year of high school, the teacher is giving a lesson that appears to be about philosophy, but the classroom noise begins to irritate him. Very upset, he slams the book on the desk, asking everyone to wake up and get back to reality. He tells them not to underestimate the importance of their grades and cultural studies and that these are also important in contributing to their final average. One of the students yawns, wondering when this class will end because it's so boring. Turning to his friend, he speaks to Kim Min, asking if he wants to go to the internet cafe after school. Kim Min responds that he can't, saying they can go ahead without him because he enrolled in a martial arts school and will be attending additional training after school. Surprised, the boy asks what's gotten into him, as it's not like him to put in so much effort, while in the background, the teacher is very irritated with both of them. He questions what they're chattering about so much and asks them to stand up. He says they never stop holding back and keep ignoring everything he's saying. At that moment, Lu Sheng arrives and tells teacher Hong that he's back. Smiling, the teacher says it's been a long time. All the students are incredulous that he has returned to school, and they never thought they would have the chance to see him again. The students start whispering various rumors and theories they heard, like the mayor wanting to arrange a marriage between him and his daughter, among other absurdities. Reacting, teacher Hong welcomes him. The boy says he wanted to come back once more to attend cultural studies classes and asks if he can, to which the teacher agrees. The protagonist walks past everyone, heading toward his desk. Excited, Hong instructs everyone to get started. Very calmly, the boy opens his book. Another student questions if this is really happening, saying his aura is truly incredible, and that he's heard he's a rank 2 martial artist. His old school friend just observes him, thinking that Lu Sheng has truly changed a lot. Sometime later, the bell rings. Exhausted, the teacher closes the book and says the class is dismissed. At this moment, Lu Sheng stands up. All the students look back at him. He waves goodbye, saying he'll remember each one of them. Other students say it's the first time they've felt so privileged to be classmates with someone. After saying goodbye, Lu Sheng sees his friend. He quickly hugs him, telling him to do his best and that they'll hang out together later. Hearing this from his great friend, he begins to tear up. He then thinks that even if he's exhausted, he will certainly get into the martial arts university, and Lu can count on him. Sometime later, the protagonist is back in his room. He is pleased because he managed to place his order, and they bought the necessary materials to make the muscle-strengthening decoction and the marrow-nourishing elixir. Now that he has his materials, the next problem is that he can't access Starweb to purchase his own weapons. So he needs to find some time to take the evaluation before the selection. Otherwise, it would be easy to expose his secrets if he had to keep bothering Dong. Noticing something on his computer, he realizes he should at least take a look at the list. He begins looking at the Eternal Sky Silver Blade and thinks these prices are absurd, costing $37,500. Seeing these ridiculous prices, he understands that the $5 million isn't really a significant amount, because he will need steel forged blades, and just the dense steel costs $9,000 per gram, and to make this blade, he would need at least a pound, which would be over $5 million. With his psychic energy being far superior, regular dense steel blades simply aren't enough, so he must look for weapons forged with another material, namely Meat Hill. Thinking about it, he concludes that he has no other choice. He will have to mine the materials himself. However, he found a map of strategic resource distribution in the Ferricet repository and believes that this map will be very useful. Opening it, he discovers unmined Meat Hill sites. He decides to extract this material from the unmined areas, and that way, he'll have the resources to find a blacksmith. If he wants, he can even sell the material, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. A week passes and he is at the Xingsheng Medicinal Hall. The irritated voice on the phone asks why Lu Sheng isn't there yet. Arriving at the location, he apologizes for keeping her waiting. He mentions that something delayed him and asks if she has prepared all the necessary materials. Embarrassed, she responds that she has, and they have been prepared according to his instructions. Curious, she asks how much these materials cost, and she says approximately 200,000. Analyzing them, he says the quality isn't bad and tells her to record it in the account book so they can deduct it from the profits. He says he's going to start now and asks if she can leave for a while. Very irritated, she agrees. As she leaves the lab, she comments that the decoction promotion hasn't even started and she hasn't earned a cent, and she's already spent almost $1 million on materials for Mr. Lu. She wonders if he's developing a new medicinal recipe and why he's been coming to the alchemy labs every day this week. Then she questions how many more secrets he's hiding. 3 hours pass and he announces that he's finished. She informs him that she'll be traveling for a few days but assures him not to worry because they already have the necessary capital for the muscle strengthening decoction. Seeing the woman's irritation, he comments on her temperament. After that, he leaves. Curious, he enters the laboratory. Seeing the vials, she realizes that this is indeed that new, unknown elixir. He has tested this elixir before and knows that it has the ability to directly strengthen bones after consumption. It's similar to a grade 4 or 5 tonic, which costs several million. She thinks about the profits this could generate and that there must be many new types of elixirs in his bag. Her employee arrives saying he did as she asked, but even after monitoring the security cameras, he couldn't see anything. It was as if the cameras had broken, but once the genius left, everything returned to normal. She comments that this trick would never work on him. Holding the vial with the green elixir, she becomes thoughtful. Throwing it in the trash, she says it's better to follow him obediently, because he is the hope for the revitalization of the family. Sometime later in the city of Kemming, the woman mentions that their destination is Sholan Village, located deep in the mountains. She comments that they can experience the village's simple and welcoming folklore and culture, and that they will also have the chance to buy mysterious traditional crafts. One woman asks if they won't be forced to buy these things, and the other says it's a very remote place. The guide responds that they are a reputable and well-known tourism agency and would never force anyone to buy anything. She mentions that they will stay in an inn in the village with excellent facilities, even including air conditioning and television. In his mind, Lu Sheng thinks that he produced a total of 23 LX-positive marrow elixirs this week, which is enough. Then he remembers the hidden Muto mine and that if he can secure it, he could monopolize it. Suddenly, a yellow ball appears in the aisle of the bus, catching his attention. A child goes to pick it up. Showing the ball, she calls him Big Brother and asks if he wants to play a game. Her mother grabs her daughter, telling her not to disturb others. She apologizes to the boy, who says it's no problem at all. However, upon observing quickly, something catches his attention. He sees an energy emanating from a man with glasses who appears to be the child's father. Smiling, he finds it very interesting because he realizes he isn't the only psychic mentalist on this trip. Inside the bus, a woman is complaining about the heat, saying it feels like hell, and that she must have been crazy to agree to accompany this trip. Her friend responds that she didn't force her, and it was her decision to come. She gets irritated, saying it was because her friend had just gone through a breakup, and she was afraid she'd come to this place to do something reckless. But her friend replies that she knows she's her best friend and that there's no need to worry, as she's too fragile to regret coming on this trip. At that moment, Zhang, the girl with pink hair, hears a noise. The child is playing ball with the protagonist, who says she has a great throw. Looking back, the woman notices the hero's presence. With the ball heading in her direction, the little girl gives it a bump. At that moment, the boy with pink hair catches the ball, saying he managed to grab it. He then throws it back to Lu, who smiles and thanks her for it. She blushes and her friend teases her, saying she's got a little crush. 2 hours pass. Zhang questions if this isn't just a common mountain forest and not a 5-star tourist attraction. Her friend says that she heard there's a big, beautiful waterfall around here. Quickly, looking back, she notices the presence of the man she thought was handsome. The child calls him Brother Zhang and asks if he will play with her again tomorrow. Patting her head, he says he will, and he'll play with her tomorrow when he's free. Approaching, the girl asks if she can play with her and Brother Zhang too. Sticking out her tongue, she says that her older brother Mang is always stealing her ball. The little girl's mother calls her, saying they're entering the village now. As she leaves, the little girl waves goodbye to Brother Zhang. Annoyed, the woman comments that the little girl is irritating and that she didn't want to play with her anyway. Lu says that children tend to speak their minds and she shouldn't take it to heart. Blushing, she says she wouldn't be upset by a child and then asks for his contact information. Quickly, he accepts. They add each other as friends. She gazes at him, looking very enamored, saying that his name is very powerful. Saying goodbye, she tells him they'll see each other around and calls him handsome. Smiling, she says that this trip seemed boring, but it looks like it's going to be interesting and her friend is happy to see her like this. Abruptly, the protagonist's focus shifts as he thinks it's interesting, because there's not only an uncommon rank 2 psychic mentalist on the trip, but also 2 rank 2 martial artists, the 2 friends. However, it seems that this mentalist hasn't discovered his identity and can only detect that he's a martial arts practitioner at most. After forming the will of a martial master, he can now control the intensity of the psychic energy he emanates, and as long as he doesn't release anything, ordinary people cannot identify him, no matter what reasons others have for coming to this mountain. If any of them become an obstacle, he will have to eliminate them without hesitation. Meanwhile, on a road hundreds of kilometers away from the mountain, a man bows to another inside a limousine. The man with purple hair asks if they have found Tang and Maolin. Smiling, he responds that they are in the mountain, and since they brought their wife and daughter with them, they're probably planning to hide there. The man thinks that Tang has some sense, and if he's hiding deep in the mountains, there's not much they can do against him. Still kneeling, he says that they've already sent men to keep an eye on him and assures that they'll find him no matter what. Laughing, he says he just needs to ensure they don't take their eyes off him. They are only rank 4 martial artists and stand no chance against him. As he sips his drink, he reflects that Tang and Maolin cannot blame him for being ruthless, because since they offended him, if he doesn't kill them, everyone will think he's a coward. And if that happens, all sorts of scoundrels will come, thinking they can take advantage. At that moment, he offers his drink to the woman beside him. She begins to open her eyes. Suddenly, a purple ooze starts dripping from her eyes and mouth, completely exiting her and returning to the glass. Smiling, he says that filled with indecent emotions of love, she exudes the youthful aura unique to someone in their 20s. It's so sweet and charming. Looking at one of the photos, he thinks that Tang and Maolin brought their daughter along and that, by the looks of it, he will have another addition to his collection. Sometime later, the couple, along with their daughter, enter their room. She asks her daughter to be careful because the floor is uneven. At that moment, the father activates an ability. There is a supportive psychic energy throughout the room, so powerful that it even extends through the entire building. He then confirms that the room is very clean as nothing has been tampered with. His wife comments that he's being overly cautious, and that no matter how powerful Yu is, he won't be able to reach them here. However, the man says it's better to be safe than sorry, especially since he has her and their daughter with him. Therefore, he needs to be cautious, and they are fleeing for their lives now because Yu is a renowned rank 3 psychic mentalist. He's a narrow-minded person who seeks revenge for any offense. He says they will hide for about a year at his father's house, and maybe after that, they'll be safe, because he and his father are rank 2. The man says that together, they can stop him. The woman mentions that it's been a while since she's seen her father and wonders how his health is. Her father's cultivation is quite strong, and he is also a peak level rank 2 psychic mentalist, and that he might even advance to rank 3 now being at his peak, so he must be in good health. He concludes by saying that he won't let her or their daughter get hurt. They embrace as the little girl looks out the window. Paying close attention, she starts observing someone. Lu Sheng is outside their room, watching everything. Using his psychic powers, he is scanning the entire area. Observing the people in the nearby regions, he concludes that, aside from the surveillance staff, there's nothing suspicious going on. And since he's not being bothered, he decides to leave them alone. At this moment, he places a blue sphere in his hand. With its help, the refinement speed of the golden immortal body of a martial master has increased significantly. And this way, in less than 2 months, he will likely be able to fully cultivate the first stage of the golden immortal body. This will allow him to generate internal energy and officially join the ranks of level 4 martial artists. Suddenly, the hero receives a message on his phone. In the Happy Family group, his mother tells him to be careful when he's alone and to remember to dress appropriately for the weather. Seeing this kind of sweet message, he smiles and thinks he's no longer a child. His sister also sends a message saying that Yang Yuan asked her out. She then asks her brother to be honest and asks if they are dating. This question irritates the protagonist, who tells her to focus on her cultivation and not meddle in other people's business. He also tells her to take her tonics every day. After chatting with his family, he puts down his phone. Lying on his bed, he thinks that now he should test the results of his training from the past few days, and that it's not so bad now that he's learned 10 suns in the same sky. With his body shield formed, he confronts the zombies. He can now create a martial master's force field. He can confidently say he's invincible. An explosion erupts in the area. He manages to defeat several zombies at once. Then something catches his attention. Nervous, he senses something inside with an overwhelming aura. Someone wearing knight's boots appears. It's a woman who stares back at him. She is holding a large spear encased in ice. Surprised, he realizes it's a martial master level zombie. However, his vision starts to blur. He quickly notices that she simply vanished. Suddenly, multiple danger alerts begin to blare in front of him. Frightened, he questions this avalanche of danger warnings that are appearing. Looking up, he sees the woman attacking and understands that her strike is a martial master level technique. Her attack slices him in half with extreme ease. Completely terrified, he wakes up feeling intense pain. It feels as though his body is being torn apart. He wonders if this is the sensation of dying in the dream world. Exhausted, he feels relieved that it was just a dream and wasn't real, because otherwise his life would have ended. Reflecting on the battle, he realizes that he used all his psychic energy to block the attack, but it was completely useless. Her attack power was far superior. He thought he was doing well in the dream dimension, and that thanks to his intellect, he could handle those high-level zombies with ease. The dream dimension isn't the perfect paradise, and after the collapse of civilization, only blood and fire can create the true savior in this world. That martial master was very strong, and her combat ability surpasses many of Shi's skills. She might be rank 8. The River of Ice could have been the manifestation of her consciousness, and if he could obtain it, it would be unimaginable. If he had acted then with those techniques, he might have been able to withstand her, and now he must try again. Determined, he focuses to try once more. Sometime later, the girl is admiring the protagonist, saying he eats with such enthusiasm and that he's very cute. Her friend snaps her out of it, asking if she's really fallen for Luo Wushang. Zhang responds that she has and questions if it's that obvious to him. Her friend says he's very young and is just a student. She comments that his aptitude for martial arts might not be very good, unlike the girl who is very talented and a rank 2 martial artist. The girl comments that he is only 3 or 4 years younger and that age shouldn't be a problem. She says she came to spend time with her friend and that meeting him was part of God's plan. Her friend then questions how they will manage a relationship and whether she will accept a long-distance love. She mentions that someone who isn't a martial master will earn at most 5,000 to 6,000 per month after graduation, and how will she afford a house and a car? She explains that love isn't just about possibilities but about everyday life, and that over time, couples' contradictions will accumulate, potentially leading to a breakup. Zhang responds that it's not a problem because she's a rank 2 martial artist and can guide him in martial arts, and that if he doesn't have a house or a car, she does. Even if he becomes an ordinary person, she can very well become an ordinary person with him. Looking at him, she says that after all, who said he was ordinary? To her, he is always beautiful and brilliant. Looking at him, she says she believes his future will be far beyond that. Her friend asks if she's gone crazy and if she's going to give up more than a decade of martial arts training for just 1 year of high school. She comments that he's too fragile and doesn't understand what she really sees in him. The girl says her friend is too anxious and that there isn't anything between them yet. She says they will talk after she actually wins him over. However, they had no idea that thanks to Lu Sheng's ability, he heard every word they said. Annoyed, he thinks it's ridiculous. The girl then raises her hand, asking what he means by that word. Smiling, he says it's just a term used to compliment girls for being pretty. After hearing this, she runs away from that place. Pointing at the pink-haired girl, he says these 2 girls are ridiculous. Smiling, he simply agrees, which leaves both of them very confused. The next day, everyone is exhausted. One of the men wonders where that family of 3 went. The woman working asks if they are going to check their room and if they can search for them. The old man comments that the other guy is also missing. Meanwhile, elsewhere, the pink-haired girl notices something. She wonders what's happening now. She is surrounded by several magical pink threads near some spiders. In another place, a man runs to the temple calling for his chief. He says that the mana has returned and it's returned with the entire family. This is the chief of Xian village. The girl runs toward him, calling him grandpa. Suddenly, she rushes to embrace him. Laughing, he asks how she is and she replies that she's fine. His daughter arrives with her husband. The man remains silent while 2 people in the background call out to them, asking why they returned. The old man says they came back to see him and asks the 2 men to hunt some wild game so they can have fun tonight. Picking the girl up in his arms, he asks if she's going to hunt something wild with him. Smoking his pipe, the man comments that there must be a reason for their return and that she should open up without hiding anything. After hearing this, both become nervous. Breaking the silence, the man begins to speak. They are seated across from the father and son-in-law. Coughing, the man asks why he got involved as a rank 3 psychic mentalist. He comments that he always knew it would cause trouble and that this day would come. The girl becomes very nervous and asks them to help, saying they should think of it as just offering a hand. Irritated, the man mentions that the old man had been trying to advance to rank 3 as a psychic mentalist for a while and asks if he succeeded. He responds that he failed and that, in addition, he messed up his insides and completely ruined his cultivation. And that if that mentalist shows up, all he can do is hold him off for a while. So they should seek help from someone else. The couple is shocked, asking who else they could turn to. The old man mentions the local authorities and says they should trust the police. He explains that even if he is a level 3 psychic mentalist, he can't go around committing murders in broad daylight. However, the man thinks that calling the police will be completely useless and then asks what they could do to help. One of the men then calls the chief, alerting him that they now have an intruder in the area. Meanwhile, the protagonist is climbing some stairs. Reading his map, Lu Sheng understands that this is the village the map led him to and it's quite remote. Quickly, he dodges a dagger. The boy questions who he is and how he found this place. Reading the situation, Lu Sheng simply observes him. Emerging from the bushes, the little girl is very happy and calls him buddy. Rushing to hug him, she asks if he came to her grandfather's house so they could play. The woman sighs in relief upon realizing it's that guy, so the old man asks if they know this boy. The boy asks if they got lost too, and the man replies no, that this is his wife's hometown where they've been returning for years. The old man says he likes the clarity in his eyes and then welcomes him to the true village of Shanglin. Smiling, the man says they arrived at the perfect moment because his sister and her family just returned and he will hunt something for them to eat tonight. Observing the people, Lu Sheng thinks this is no ordinary village. It's not normal to encounter psychic mentalists around, but who would have thought this village has 3 of them? And on top of that, this old man is at the peak of rank 2. And as psychic mentalists, he bets they know the value of mithril, so Kong will likely ask about it. Sad, the little girl says they can't play ball together anymore because she lost it. Noticing something, the protagonist senses that this aura belongs to Zhang Dandan and Lin, and he wonders if they followed him here or just passing by. However, his eyes sharpen as he realizes something. It's not just the 2 of them, so the girl looks back saying it's just a ball. Wang appears, laughing, saying he didn't expect him to go so deep into the mountain forest. The 2 women are being carried away, looking desperate. The man with purple hair says that Tang Maolin has made him waste a lot of time and effort. Irritated, the old man says that this guy is trouble because he's not just any rank 3 psychic mentalist, he's a peak rank 3 psychic mentalist. Activating his powers, he tells Maolin to get the girls and the villagers out of there immediately. Then, he engages in the fight. However, the man with purple hair mocks him, questioning if he's trying to launch a sneak attack. He asks if that's all he can do or if he's counting on this old man. With such weak psychic energy, he doesn't even deserve to be called a psychic mentalist. But this time, he'll shatter all his hopes into pieces and give him a taste of true despair. Hearing this, the old man becomes completely enraged, declaring that he will kill him. He begins to conjure some kind of energy, launching an attack that resembles raindrops. Several head toward Yu, who, with his eyes closed, makes a motion to defend, slicing all the objects with just one gesture. Seeing this, the father questions why his dense steel sphere cannon had absolutely no effect. Smiling, the man congratulates him for daring to use a dense steel weapon against him. Starting an attack with his right hand, he says that such ignorance is very arrogant. Seeing this, the little girl begins to call for her mother. The old man and the father become increasingly enraged. The man tells them to go after him and not to involve others. Laughing, the villain says he's stubborn to the end. Then he begins to tighten the ropes around the necks of both the old man and the father. He comments that initially he wanted to kill those 2 girls following him and blame him for it. But upon realizing that this place is so remote and isolated from the world, it's perfect because he can take his time dealing with him. He says he's going to turn him into wine. Shocked, the father questions if the villain will use the dark art to turn humans into vessels for wine. Enraged, he calls him a monster as the rope tightens further around his neck. Laughing, the rank 3 martial artist says that's the expression he wants to see. Crying, the green-haired girl questions if they are all going to die in this mountain. Regretful, she says she should never have come to this place. Her pink-haired friend also cries in despair, thinking they will all die there. From a distance, she starts watching Lu Shen. In her mind, she says that if they have a chance, they might meet again in another life. The leader orders his subordinates to grab the girl, and following the command, one of them throws her to the ground. Both move towards the little girl. As he approaches her, the girl simply stares at him with great fear. Suddenly, his thread is broken. Surprised, the villain realizes it and wonders why his mithril web has shattered. Furious, the protagonist grips the line with his hands. Embracing him, the little girl pleads for him to save her father and mother. At that moment, the 2 henchmen charge at them. While smiling, Lu throws a punch at one of them without even looking at his opponent. In an instant, he defeats both while ruffling the little girl's hair. Seeing this, the man is astonished and questions if he might be a rank 5 martial artist. Analyzing him, the hero thinks the villain looks weak, lacking internal strength and energy. Intrigued, he remarks that there's no way he could be rank 5, then asks how he managed to break his web. At this point, the villain asks Tang Maolin if this is the boy who is going to protect him. He explains that without any internal strength, he's just a strong kid, and his web will slice his body like butter. Smiling, the hero replies that the villain can certainly try. Deeply irritated, the man insists that he's overestimating himself. Then he launches a hideous giant spider from his webs toward him. Raising his hands, the protagonist begins to defend himself. The green-haired woman realizes he has perfect control over the martial arts, and that this level is nearly divine. Witnessing all this, the villain questions how this is possible and states it makes no sense. Holding the webs without any difficulty, he asks if the villain is finished speaking. Then he yanks the man using his own threads. Startled, he wonders how this boy can control his web like that. Puffing up, he asserts that even if he's going to die, he will drag the hero down to hell with him. At that moment, the villain appears like some kind of dumpling. Intervening, the old man warns that the man is going to implode his psychic energy and everyone present will die in that explosion. The hero's love interest is on the ground crying, wondering what they should do. Seeing all this, Lu Sheng begins to admit that the man's psychic energy is truly pathetic, then makes his hand grow large and moves toward the meat dumpling. Seeing this, the villain becomes completely confused. Lu starts to close his hand while gripping the villain. Imploding, the man becomes desperate and then explodes.